We are live. That's right. It's time for another live Q&A here on SCW, answering all your questions wrestling related on AEW, WWE, could be NXT, could be Impact Wrestling, could be anything you want. You're the people in control with this show with your questions. Get involved nice and early. We'll give you a shout out and answer the questions as best as we can. We've got some topics we want to talk about as well, including the top topic of Blood and Guts. Of course, it'll be taking place on July the 19th in Boston. The Elite taking on the Blackpool Combat Club. We'll be discussing who we think the fifth members will be. Of course, if you've been a long-time viewer of this channel, you already know who my opinion will be for the Elite side. Of course, as early as March was my prediction for that, of where it would lead to. And to believe it or not, we are almost there all the way into July. But I'm joined by the one and only, he's a co-host at this point, the regular NX Steve. How are you doing, my friend?
Very good, man. It's it's just a hectic day, man. It's good to finally just sit down, relax, and just chat absolute waffle about wrestling, to be fair.
Absolutely, and there's been so much going on this week as well. Obviously, we'll probably touch on the idea of as well Jey Uso challenging Roman Reigns with the Tribal Court, Edge as well. The discussions, will there be a retirement soon? He seems to be clear that there won't be any retirement in the near future, but perhaps we'll have to wait and see what we think later in the stream. Also, of course, MJF and Adam Cole, better than you, baby. Certainly is a fun thing going on right now in AEW. CM Punk, of course, finally toppled Samoa Joe in the Owen Hart tournament. Perhaps we can give our predictions as well later in the stream, who we think will be winning the men's and women's tournament. So plenty to discuss. So there's a good reason to stick around here, get your questions in, get involved. And like I say as well, if you are new to the channel, subscribe as well, because plenty of wrestling content coming on this channel on a regular basis. And I keep flirting with 2,000 subscribers, going under, going over, going under. So let's tip it over and keep it on 2,000 plus. But the first question coming in.
Do I have to do another one of my great promos at the end for you?
Absolutely. I think we'll save that. When I need it in the middle of the stream, I'm just going to switch it over to you, because it did wonders last time.
Problem.
But the first one that came in is from C Nation Dog in house. Hope you're doing well, C Nation. CD says, when is the Slammiversary 2023 predictions video coming? Ironic that you mentioned it, because it was originally intended for yesterday, but I did see the Instagram post from Impact Wrestling. Steve Maclin picking up a horrendous injury, apparently on the, I believe it was on the Australia tour. So he's been ruled out of Slammiversary. Of course, he was meant to tag with Bully Ray against Scott D'Amore and PCO. Apparently on Busted Open Radio on Monday is when Bully Ray's partner will be announced. So I've decided to hold off until then. We'll see if I get a chance to release it on Monday, but what I'd say is by Tuesday at the very latest, Slammiversary predictions will be on the channel. I was already hoping to have them up this weekend, but with that delay, as you can probably understand, I want to keep things as up to date as possible. I didn't want an outdated video. But C Nation, let us know in the chat as well when your predictions are coming as well, because of course CD does some great work on his channel, plenty of content on his channel as well. So make sure if you're an Impact fan to go and check his videos out for Slammiversary as well. Ice Chain Pure Water, loving the handle name, says hi. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for checking us out on the Sunday sessions. Noob & Co in the house as well says how we were doing today. We're doing very well, Noob. How are you doing? Are you feeling confident? Auska defending the WWE Women's Championship against Bianca Belair next Friday on SmackDown. Let us know your thoughts on that as well. I'd love to know, of course, a big Auska fan. I'd like to get your take on how you think that championship match will go down. But let's go straight in while we're waiting for a few questions to come in with our top topic here today. Of course, as I said, we were going to talk about Blood and Guts 2023. It's been building for quite a while. The Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite. And of course, we've got now to a stage where on one side, we've got Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta. Of course, that's the BCC. Bryan Danielson is injured at this moment, so he will not be taking part in this match. We've got Konosuke Takeshita, of course, being a part of this match also. Don Callis, of course, is by his side. We have a vacant spot there. And of course, on the Elite side, of course, we've got Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page. So if you don't mind, let's go through, I'll go through some of the names, perhaps the speculation station. Maybe I will rule some in, rule some out, and then perhaps I'll come to you for an input of what you think. And then perhaps to finish off, I'll give my take, and then we'll see what the chat has to say about Blood and Guts. So we'll start off then with what I think makes the easiest point of this. As I said, I predicted this many months ago, and I feel still very confident about it, is the Elite side. Now, obviously, Eddie Kingston was a part of the Elite side at the Forbidden Door show, but he's apparently going to be part of the G1 in New Japan, which rules him out completely. So he can't be a part of the Elite side. Obviously, John Moxley this past week on Dynamite saying to answer your phone, he can't either be a part of the Blackpool Combat Club either, despite whatever's going on with that relationship. It's probably going to carry on to another day, perhaps an all-in or an all-out. So I think it's going to be Kota Ibushi. That's my pick for it. Someone that is not linked with New Japan anymore. He's left that company. For me as well, of course, the Golden Lovers tag team with Kenny Omega. He did a promo this past week as well, which kind of teased it as well after the show went off air, saying he's got someone very, very close. The reason he wasn't on AEW TV the previous week was because he went to make a trip to talk to a close friend. I'm going to get your take quite early on that because it looked like you had a very nod of approval there. Kota Ibushi at this point, coming to AEW. What a massive debut that would be if he was to come in, and he would be a perfect choice, in my opinion, for Kenny Omega and the Elites.
Yeah, my only issue with Kota being the one is the match type. Like, to see Kota Ibushi in a blood and guts match, I think it's really far out there. Like, it's not something I'd expect him to do, but I'd be well gassed for it. But just to pipe in on the Eddie Kingston thing, I think more likely that Renee Paquette would have more to say about Eddie Kingston being part of the Blackpool Combat Club than anyone else.
Yeah, possibly indeed. Obviously, that was quite tasty when they had their sort of interactions very recently on AEW. But obviously, going in onto the other side, obviously, when you look at the Blackpool Combat Club, I think they are kind of solid in their numbers. I don't see them necessarily adding to the ranks, if you will, between now and Blood and Guts. We're so close to it. We mentioned New Japan as well already previously. Is it Shota Umino that is the sort of the protege of John Moxley in New Japan? He was a part, of course, of this multi-man match that we had at Forbidden Door. Obviously, just to quickly mention as well, the Elite side, Tomohiro Ishii will not be available either. It's all G1 season, so it rules those people out. If you look then at Don Callis' people he's been associating himself with. Obviously, he was a big part of why Will Ospreay won at Forbidden Door. Again, a New Japan star. I don't think Will Ospreay is coming in for this match. But someone that was being quite buddy-buddy this past week was Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho was saying he perhaps needs to freshen things up for himself. He's kind of done the JS, he's done the sports entertainment stuff. It's now time for a change. He's been losing some matches as of late. And when Don Callis said, why not come into my family? Of course, if you didn't know everybody, Don Callis says it previously many, many times. He was the reason the Jericho and Omega match happened at Wrestle Kingdom all them years ago. Without it, we probably wouldn't have that match. We wouldn't have a Tony Khan buying and starting an AEW, people taking a chance themselves, having the funding behind it. Thank you, Don Callis, instead of Trish Stratus, I suppose. But at the same time, what I would say is that a lot of those people are not available. But Chris Jericho is someone that potentially could be. What do you reckon the likelihood that Chris Jericho could be filling in this final spot?
Again, I think for me, it just has to make sense. Like, Chris Jericho just seems like, I think they're just dropping all these little teasers, and I think equally that their fifth member will be more of a surprise than what I think people are expecting. Like, I think, like I said, Jericho, they're making Jericho seem like quite an obvious one, but from what I've been reading this week, Punk is saying that he wants to be part of that match. And I think if you threw Punk in there, that's a massive, especially obviously the history of everything that went down last year. It's just one of them crazy scenarios where I just think this is what AEW is good at, is they're good at building up these teasers and stuff. And it's, like I said, I'm just hoping it's a bigger surprise than what it is. Like, we all enjoy surprise entrances or surprise turn-ups. And like I said, I think just if they foreshadow it so much, I think it just kills the momentum that it has going into the match.
Yeah, I mean, there is always that possibility. Obviously, Nubiko here mentioning here Kota Ibushi in for the Elite Blackpool Combat Club. Huge surprise, it's CM Punk. I've seen that today. I saw it on Wrestle Talk. I can't remember the exact source of where it's come from, but if CM Punk has really thrown his name in the hat there, that really shows that he's willing to do business. But I wonder if the Elite would be willing to do business back. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy there. You'd think if they were going to actually throw Punk and the Elite in any variation of a match, it would involve FTR as well. It'd be a big shock for me to not happen on a pay-per-view. That for me, it feels like if you're going to do it, you do it where the big bucks are going to be. Fight TV, your Bleacher Reports, make people spend their $50. I would be shocked if it happened here, although it's a name now we can't rule out. One other thing I'm going to suggest as well is, because of the fact that we are going to be looking for a fifth member, it's a good idea to have storyline narrative. So why not this week we can see the Elites kind of saying that, we've got our fifth member sorted, but it's the Blackpool Combat Club who need to figure out who their member's going to be. And it's Don Callis going, leave it with me. I've got it sorted, boys. I've got this all figured out. to the point Don Callis can't get someone in. We've seen it before with many War Games matches. Yeah, I've said War Games, everybody. For example, back in like WCW days, we've seen like Colonel Parker have to represent his group. The manager has to go in. Don Callis may be forced into a situation where he has to end up in the match. I would expect he'd end up in the cage regardless. But could you see a thing of where they can't find that final member and Callis himself has to step up?
I'll tell you what, it would be hilarious as anything. I think it would be such a funny spot, but it would almost take away from, I think, the anticipation that people and the hype that people have for this. If you think you throw Don Callis in a skimpy pair of tight shorts, I think it just doesn't have the same appeal as a CM Punk for me. Like I said, I thought Will Ospreay would have been a great shout. I think like he's recently got a one-up on Kenny Omega. I think he would have been the best shout possible. But yeah, I mean, don't rule it out. I mean, we've seen stupider things happen in AEW.
We have definitely seen a few stupid things. I think Callis will end up in the cage at some point. I don't think he's going to end up. If I had to make a prediction, I think he ends up in the match. Is there anyone on the AEW roster that would perhaps stand out to you? Do you think would be a good fit to be on the heel side going in? Perhaps someone that's quite hardcore, someone that's quite dangerous, and obviously, like I said, Eddie Kingston's not available. But you know, who do you reckon would be a good fit for it that's not being perhaps mentioned at this point?
Do you know what I think they're missing? I think the Blackpool Combat Club would be essentially missing. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but for me, I think they're missing someone that does just like crazy, outlandish stuff. Like they need some sort of high flyer, and like I'd be up for seeing like a Bandido or El Vikingo. Do you know what I mean? Someone just really random, but that is really exciting to watch because they just do the absolute most craziest stuff.
I like the vibe you've got there because when I hear those names, I think of Sabu. Like obviously, you go back to the old Extreme days. Someone like you say, either takes things to the Blood and Guts Blackpool Combat Club style of school, where they're just hardcore to the bone. I like the vibe of that, especially if you were to turn one of those guys heel to do that this week. You'd need a big heel turn this upcoming week on Dynamite, so it'd be interesting how it will play out. For me, I feel that, like you said there, if you're going with a name value, CM Punk would be a fantastic position to get in, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Chris Jericho perhaps will be the one. I just feel that for me, it could be a case that Jericho's in this match, but he's not with Don Callis long term. Although I think Jericho and Callis could be money together. I really do. I think that could actually really work as a duo because at this point, for me, I look at it and I say, like, Jericho has done some great work. Obviously, when he's had factions, he's been the leader. But to be a part of a family, someone else's, at this point in this stage of his career, I think could be quite a nice little touch.
Yeah, I think it would. My issue is like, what does it mean if you are to have Jericho? What does it mean for the rest of like the JAS and everything else going forward, and how it plays into that? I suppose long term or short term, there might be a small storyline here for it. Just for me, Chris Jericho, just even though he seems like the most obvious choice, he's not the most obvious choice. If you know what I mean, like I don't see the fit. Unless they're really desperate and can't find someone to fill this spot.
Absolutely. I mean, that could be the situation of how can the spot be filled. Obviously, Jericho has experience as well in these Blood and Guts matches, being part of the first one, if we remember back in the day as well. Obviously, this show, I believe, is going to be in Boston in the TD Garden. So obviously, they'll be away from Canada at that point. I can't imagine there'll be any hometown heroes that want to be on the villain side. But we've got a couple of suggestions in the comments below, so we'll bring those up. Dan the Man Williams, of course, Dan Williams, good to see you, my friend, was on screen, ladies and gentlemen, on Money in the Bank. Good to see him actually hit the cameras as well. Probably not the last time we'll see him in a WWE TV show, I'm sure. Samoa Joe would be a perfect fit for Blood and Guts, he says. And I think Joe would be that sort of guy that would be a good fit. Obviously, he did lose to CM Punk in the semi-finals of the Owen Hart tournament. It looks like he's keeping that feud going as well. I like the way they finished that match off because it felt like the Owen Brett style finish of the roll-up. But at the same time, Joe, I mean, for Blood and Guts, would be a great fit, but obviously doesn't have anything with the narrative of the storyline at the moment. But perhaps they bring someone in like that, a big heavy.
Yeah, it's like I'm just sitting there looking through the roster as we're talking now, and there's a couple of names on there that I'm picking off. But yeah, like Joe, again, for me personally, it needs to make sense story wise. But Joe, I think Joe's like just a great wrestler in general anyway, so he'll make it work anyway. It's just like I said, for me, story wise, I want it to be someone that makes sense, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, indeed. There, but Joe, though, certainly is a violent man, ladies and gents. He certainly would be an interesting fit and proposition for it. Richard, in the house as well. A spoiler, sure, it's a prediction, but BCC will beat Blade with the bunny, and the Elite is Brandon Cutler. I mean, Brandon could be always that last choice for the Elite, but it would be a big disappointment if it's not Kota Ibushi at this point. Especially now, I believe Fightful are reporting that there has been some discussion in there as well. But we'll have to wait and see. But then, as a final pick, then at this particular moment, we'll first go with a final pick who the fifth people will be, and then we'll finish off by giving a prediction for the match. So fifth member then, I think, do we agree then that Kota Ibushi will be the one for the Elite?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the safest and most obvious choice.
Absolutely. And then for the Blackpool Combat Club,
I'm gonna say something outrageous, and I'm gonna turn around and say that it's someone like Jay White. I think Jay White in this dynamic would be awesome. He has history with the Elite. He was the one that essentially kicked Kenny out of the Bullet Club, and I think it'd just be a great spot for him to be. It probably won't be him, but I'm just gonna go with an outlandish guess.
I really like that pick, though. Like you said, for all the reasons you just said, I don't need to repeat them off, but also just the thing as well that they give him such a prominent position. It feels like he's really, I mean, the match with FTR, by the way, Collision was outstanding with Juice Robinson. Unreal. And the fact they get to do it next week, 2 out of 3 falls, I'm excited for massively. But at the same time, what I would say is that Jay White in this position, this would be massive. I do think he's got big plans ahead. It looks like they're slow building a long-term program for him and CM Punk as well. I wonder if All In could be the choice. Yeah, I really like the Jay White pick. I will go with Chris Jericho. I think it'll be a short-term play, and I think it could lead to Chris Jericho having problems with Don Callis down the line. Because if they want to do, say, Kenny versus Takeshita to begin with, they can then build it off. If they want to keep building up Takeshita with Callis, to have Jericho as the next person, a babyface Chris Jericho at that as well.
Yeah.
One more we're getting in, and we'll move on, and we'll answer everyone's questions that have come in so far. DWE says, could Adam Cole also be with the Elite due to the history? Certainly couldn't rule it out. I think it'd be fun. Do you know what would be really fun is if they did turn to Adam Cole, because like you say there, he's been kind of with the Elite at some points. He came in with the Elite as well when he came into AEW. If MJF was the pick for the Blackpool Combat Club, that could be really fun. That put on the other side.
That would actually, it would hell make sense, and it'd actually be really cool to see. I mean, but like the way MJF's story's going in the minute, this guy doesn't want to wrestle every week, and I'm pretty sure our Blood and Guts match is really not on his wish list of things to do as AEW World Champion. I think this guy would do anything possible to avoid being in a match like that.
Especially as it has experience of being in one. So I imagine he wouldn't want to do it again. Because he did pick up the win, though, when he did do it previously. But in the modern day, I don't think he wants to be involved with that. But that's our thoughts and feelings. Anyone else wants to continue to talk about Blood and Guts, feel free to do so in the comments. We'll happily bring up your comments, your predictions, your questions. Get involved. We'd like to hear from you. C Nation does go back onto, by the way, says that YouTube takes away subscribers if you get a lot of one time. So that can be a scenario of what's happening there, because it seems to be just like up, down, unfortunately. It's not everyone's YouTube channel, unfortunately, but hopefully the subscribers will find their way. C Nation does go on also say that his predictions has already come out last Friday. So technically, video isn't outdated because Steve Maclin wasn't pulled off of the card yet. Absolutely not. And of course, there's like 8 other matches as well. So it's definitely worth checking out, people. If you want Slammiversary predictions at this moment, CD is your guy. Nubico says, I think there's going to be more mayhem just like last week. Most likely Damage Control, and what's left of it will be interfering. I think Harry Sane return at SummerSlam this year. Obviously, going back onto what I said earlier on, what do you think will happen with Auska and Bianca Belair? Quite a few suggestions there. Obviously, Io Sky did try to cash in Money in the Bank in Madison Square Garden this past Friday, was unsuccessful in doing so. Bayley looking help as well. So Damage Control on the same page at the moment. First off, do we see some carnage next week? I mean, for me, I'd expect Charlotte Flair would ruin the opportunity for Bianca Belair to win that championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we know what it's building for towards SummerSlam, so it's just again how they're going to creatively get around it. But I'm still on the basis that I think Io is going to be the first one to fail to cash in. Unfortunately, I think that every one of them has been successful so far. I think the story narrative with Bayley is inevitably going to lead to. It's either going to lead to one of two things. It's either going to lead to one of Io successfully cashing in, but then having a rivalry with Bayley, which then breaks up Damage Control, or the cash in will be failed. Whoever is the champ will retain, and then it will again lead to the split up of Damage Control, and we still get that rivalry between Io and Bayley.
I think both would make sense at this point, and I kind of agree with you. It's sad to see, but I think Io Sky long term, though, still will come out with the championship, even if it doesn't involve
Yeah, I hope so.
the briefcase. She had the breakout moment, which I think was necessary to start this
Mm.
story off. But to further that question on, then, Kyrie was saying, do you see her return to WWE at some point in the future?
I very much doubt it, unfortunately. I'd like, don't get me wrong, the idea of a Kyrie saying Io Sky Asuka triple threat sounds amazing. It's
Yes.
just, I just don't think with Vince McMahon in charge, it's a high possibility. I think it's more fan wishes than anything else at this minute.
Absolutely, indeed. There. C Nation goes on to ask, do we think we'll get a women's blood and guts match? Will it still happen? I don't think it'll happen now this year. I think we've moved on storyline-wise now that the men have been announced. But I think one day we will get it. Sadly, I just don't think it'll be in the near future.
I don't think they've got a big enough roster to do it, if I'm honest. I think that you've got obviously one or two massive factions, but then you look at the rest of the roster, you could probably throw a team together. If, like, for instance, if you had an Outcast with two other members, and then you'd have to throw a random team of 5 together. I think there is a few women on there, but just not enough, I think, at this present minute to make a blood and guts women match work.
Well, we have seen it in WWE with NXT multiple times before, people being thrown together and stuff. So it wouldn't be completely outside of the box.
Yeah.
But at the same time, well, I would agree with you. I think that's the way they do it. And I mean, it's a shame. I think we were building to it at one point with the Outcast that story. It felt like there was enough enemies there for it, but unfortunately it just doesn't look like it's going to happen now this year, especially with many key injuries as well. Serena doesn't seem to be in the ring as much at the minute. Jamie Hayter is out injured at the moment, so I mean we kind of lost a couple of the big hitters to make that match possible. So Sinisha goes on to say Steve Maclin losing the Impact World Championship is a blessing in disguise. What if Steve Maclin had to vacate the championship just before Slammiversary? People would start saying that Impact Wrestling doesn't protect their world champions because they're always getting injured. For example, Josh Alexander and Steve Maclin are most recent champions that are injured. It's a very good point you make there. Obviously, it's I suppose you never want to say blessing in disguise because obviously, but I get the point of what he's saying there. Vacating a championship is never nice to see. It's good that he lost the championship before this injury came about. But we do wish Steve Maclin a very speedy recovery. He's a top talent. I think he's reinvented himself so well in Impact Wrestling since his forgotten Sundays in WWE. And hopefully it won't be too long till he's back on the screens. I still was disappointed it was such a short reign for him as Impact World Champion. Nation says, is LA Knight a babyface or a heel? I think at this point, the transition is on from a heel to a babyface, but he wasn't on TV on SmackDown this past week. However, there was a digital exclusive that was eventually released on Twitter saying, you want LA Knight? Here is LA Knight interrupting the Hit Row guys. What were your thoughts with LA Knight with that and not being on SmackDown this past week?
So stupid. It's so stupid. He's like the most over talent they've got at the minute, and you don't have him on TV. It honestly doesn't make sense. I mean, what was Austin Theory doing? Wasn't Austin Theory wrestling? He was at the United States title match, didn't he? I think
Sheamus, yeah.
Against Sheamus, that's right, yeah. And I'm like, surely you should now be trying to. This guy is so over. Like, it really annoys me because you can tell this is Vince. You can just honestly see that Vince is just turning around and being going, nah, this isn't the guy I want to push. You know, keep him off TV. And then that's why they've had to do the digital exclusive. It's so stupid.
Do you reckon that there could be a test? I mean, obviously, I agree with you, by the way. Obviously, the Bloodline segment was really, really long this week, but I still thought it was magical. I really think from start to finish. And you're not going to get everyone on TV every week. That's a given there. But at the same time, LA Knight, you can find something for him to do, even for a very, very short time. You get a segment in there for him. Obviously, segment with Madison Square Garden was the Hit Row segment that they had. But I agree with you. I do feel that you need to strike while the iron's hot. There's something that's connected organically here with this guy, and I think, like you said, with the United States Championship, I predicted it in my video earlier this week. I do think we'll get LA Knight versus Austin Theory at SummerSlam or at the SmackDown before or after if they don't fit it on the match card. But I think that they would be silly not push LA Knight at this point.
I'm getting a very Daniel Bryan vibe with LA Knight at the minute. Like, he's so over with the crowd, but WWE or certain someone just doesn't want to push him as high as they want to. But unfortunately, it's inevitably going to lead to the crowd winning him over with Vince. And like the fact is, he's probably selling so much merch as well. And this is the other thing that drives me. They're a business at the end of the day, and their business is to make money. This guy sells T-shirt and merch at the minute, like, do you know what I mean? Like it's hotcakes. He's just released a brand new T-shirt. And I'm sorry, if you don't have him on TV, then what's the point? You're only going to be selling T-shirts to the crowd in attendance. Like, you're basically avoiding you're avoiding the worldwide audience they have that can easily log on to the WWEshop.com and buy a new LA Knight T-shirt. It's just stupid.
It is a bit silly, but do you reckon this is going to be the devil's advocate question? Then, is it a test to see how it does for social media numbers, as it wasn't on TV? How many people will go out of their way to see this on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, the CLA Night segment? Is this a final test to say this guy can make it or break it?
Yeah, but look who they've put him in the ring with. It's what do you call it? I can't, Hit Row.
Hit Row.
It's not like. It's not even like they're on TV consecutive. At this point now, they're essentially jobbers. And it's like, what's the point? Put him in the ring with someone who's got a bit more like social media awareness. No one cares about Hit Row Online at the minute. They're like, I'm not trying to be nasty and facetious about it, but they're just not hitting numbers at the minute. Then this is the reason why they're not on TV. So put him on TV with someone who is doing numbers. If you want a bigger social media impact, then you need people that have a bigger impact online. Hit Row just don't have that at the minute.
They're hitting Rose Ed, if we're being brutally honest, at this particular moment, aren't they? But yeah, poor guys.
I'll tell you what, your lines get cheesier every time, man.
They do. They'll get worse as the stream goes on as well. Thank goodness I'm not drinking. Ace of the K in the house. Hope you guys are doing well. It says Jericho seems most likely for the BCC. The stuff with Don Callis, also him not getting to work with Punk. He'll want to get big main event stuff. So yeah, I mean that some good points there. They're made from A to K, doing fantastic stuff on their channel, by the way. Make sure to go and check them out there. So thank you for sharing your opinions on Blood and Guts. Martin Karrion in the house as well. Martin, hope you're doing well. Says, what's up, guys? Just came in to say hi and also ask one question. By the looks of it, Solo is leaning towards being the one to beat Roman. Is it a justified choice for everyone to do it? So let's talk a little bit then about Blood and Guts. Sorry, the tribal courts. Everything's Blood and Guts in my head now at the moment. But yeah, the tribal court this past Friday. Absolutely, indeed. There, but what were your thoughts of it? Because there were so many different parts of this opening segment, if you will, where everyone gets their shots in. Roman had the facial motions and stuff like that, and every time we went to a moment where the low blow, for example. Big long pause from the low blows hit. When Solo obviously it sees the neck thing that goes around Roman Reigns there, sees it on the ground, stares at a big long stare for it. Obviously the idea then, does he give it back to Roman before more anarchy's happening with the Usos? There was just these moments where we've seen it, even with Money in the Bank, where Solo was demanded to tag out of the match, and you just had the moment where you sort of looked at Roman, and there was kind of this doubt of A, he doesn't want to get out of the ring because he thinks he can do the job, but B, maybe he doesn't trust Roman to do the job. Roman did let him down at Money in the Bank because Roman was the one who was pinned, albeit for the first time in 3.5 years. If there is, which it feels like inevitably there will be, a Roman versus Solo Sikoa match, is Solo the right choice to take a championship off Roman Reigns if, let's say, Jey Uso or Cody Rhodes or someone else isn't?
No, I think narratively they're going to use Jey picking up the pin in that tag match just as a storyline going forward. I couldn't see Jimmy beating Roman, and at the minute I couldn't see Solo. I think that the whole point of Solo is eventually he'll just turn on Roman, and then Roman's going to be left on his own. You can't have your world champion. Like, it's been 3.5 years since he's lost. You can't tell me that in the next 6 months he's going to lose to like 3 of his cousins. It just does not work for me.
No, but I mean, the thing is, say, for example, with Solo, that this was built. I'm trying to make a faction connection. I'm going to go with Evolution. Feels the closest I can think of. Because when that group was breeding the Stars of Tomorrow, they had obviously Triple H and Ric Flair at the helm, and then they had Randy Orton and Batista. It felt like Randy Orton was the one they wanted to push first, and obviously he won the championship first, but kind of flopped. He lost the championship within a few weeks, and then all of a sudden, this story organically got over with Batista. Whether it was meant to be the plan or doesn't, for me, is irrelevant of the story. But Batista got so over to the point that it felt like it couldn't be ignored. He went on to win the Royal Rumble. Then he went on to win the championship from Triple H at that WrestleMania, which was a WrestleMania 21, if I'm not mistaken. If there is a section between now and, let's say, the Royal Rumble, where they can really build it up nicely, what if Solo was to win the Royal Rumble match, build up himself up to WrestleMania, and what if he wants to be built to be, dare I say it, the one?
No, I'm sorry, Steve. I can't. I just can't see it happening. It's sorry, my lights all just went out on me for some reason. I couldn't see it happening. It's for me, Solo's lacking character at the minute. He's all action, and there's until I'm intrigued and interested in what he's got to say on a microphone, he just doesn't do it for me. And I think that's the thing at the minute. Like I said, he's kind of like, I'm trying to think of someone else in comparison who I can't think of any off the top of my head, but do you know what I mean? He's great in ring, but from character wise, you just stand there, doesn't say anything. Like, don't get me wrong, his facial expressions are amazing. Like, but he need good shout, Omos. I want to compare him to Omos. Don't get me wrong,
Okay.
wrestling style is completely different. But when Omos had that match and he started giving all that trash talk in the ring, I was like, where has this guy been? This is so much more intriguing. Like, he's just talking smack, and do you know what I mean? It was so good to see, and then he never does it again. When Solo has that moment, then for me, he will become more believable as someone that could go on and win a world title.
Fair play. I think it's a fair argument there. For me, what I was saying is, I would say never. I think there's a possibility that it could be, but whether it's the right choice long term, it's what you do afterwards. I think that's a lot of people's gripe if it was to be Jey Uso, what you do afterwards of giving them the championship. You know, for example, with Cody Rhodes, the story will be set in place. He's finished the story, what they can go on to next. So I think a name like that at the moment seems to make more logic to me to beat Roman. But certainly the matches, there's a lot of interest and a lot of intrigue. What they are doing is really, really good stuff. And hopefully they continue the Bloodline storyline to a huge success in WWE.
Just to add to this storyline, we had Roman Reigns crying. Yeah. Just when you think that it can't get any better. And like, obviously, we know these segments drag out and stuff, and you kind of think, all right, let's get it on with it. But every time they surprise us, this guy is on his knees and he is legitimately crying. Ain't no special effects, no Hollywood. Like, this guy, I was so impressed that he pulled it off. It looked amazing. And I was like, my God, this guy is so good. I was just so impressed with it. But on the other hand, Jey Uso looked awesome holding that WWE championship. Like, I was like, I can get behind Jey as world champion. You know, I can see it. I've seen Jey's progression as a character. He is main event Jey. Like, I've seen him go through the trials and tribulations, everything to do with Sami Zayn then turning on the Bloodline and all this kind of stuff. But when he picked up that title, I was like, I can see Jey as world champion in the future. Like, I'm sold by it. Like, the image alone was like, I can see that happening.
It does feel like it'd be really, really cool to happen. I mean, we mentioned earlier on in this video where you said about Jay White kicking Kenny Omega out of the Bullet Club. Obviously, Jay White then becoming one of the top faces or top stars, should I say, in New Japan Pro Wrestling, becoming a world champion and stuff like that. It's the sort of story you could do if you wanted to do it like that, especially if the Uso side was more heel and Roman was, I suppose, pushed to the face side. But at the same time, I think fans at the moment would just go crazy if Jey Uso was to win it. They'd be really happy. It fits the narrative right now for Jey to be the face and Roman to be the heel. But certainly, I mean, to be fair, to finish the story off and to go full circle of it, it would be very, very exciting. But like you said, this particular moment, I don't see any of them just doing it. It's hard to believe these days that Roman would ever lose that championship. Daz thinks that Kota Ibushi will be on so yeah, that's a great shout there as well. Therefore, the blood and guts match for the elite side. I'll answer this one very quickly, Richard, because unfortunately I don't understand the question very well. Which NXT female wrestler is staying in WWE SmackDown? Pretty much all of them. They've all been through NXT at this point. So I can't really give a which. It's all. They've all gone for NXT. Sinistro says Dr. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter and the Outcast were supposed to have a women blood and guts match, but Jamie Hayter got injured. I didn't know it was supposed to happen. We certainly speculated on this channel many, many times in the past, but it's a shame if it was meant to happen that it didn't happen. Hopefully at some point they will get an opportunity to do one of those styles of matches in the future. Sinistro goes on to say Karrion Kross got a jobber entrance and lost AJ Styles in a short match. It's a bit of a shame, although Karrion Kross didn't want any sympathy according to his Instagram post today, I noticed.
I honestly don't know what they're doing with this guy. Like, he came back in a blaze of glory and he's just done nothing. He's just been irrelevant. We all kind of know that when Triple H took over creative last year that he brought way too many people back way too quickly, because we was having like 2 or 3 returns a week, and Kross just didn't fit in at any point, and ever since then, he's just been waffling on about taking out AJ Styles, and he loses in a sub 5 minute match
Yeah,
to
something like
AJ
that.
Styles, and it was like, I don't know if the whole point is to try and build Scarlett more as a wrestler. Maybe, like, don't get me
Could
wrong,
be.
I'm up for that. I think that's pretty cool, but whether it's meant to be building towards AJ and Mia Yim, or Mi Chin as she's now called, against Scarlett and Karrion, I guess okay, that's kind of cool, but what are they doing with Kross? I just haven't got a clue.
No, to be fair, at this point, look, I'm a fan of Kross. I said before,
Yeah,
I
I
think
am.
I would like to have seen him be in a group. I think that would have been a good thing. I think he needed to move to Monday Night Raw as well. I think that would have been a great move for him as well, but it just wasn't the case, unfortunately. But I don't know really what you do at this point. I think the group
Hey,
is the only way to save it.
as long as he doesn't bring back that helmet, do you know what I mean? It can't get any worse than the helmet. Let's be honest. Like, he just needs something. Like, I don't know. He just needs to, like, being on SmackDown is obviously the wrong choice for him. He needs to be. He's on SmackDown, isn't he? I'm just not getting my shows mixed up. Like, I'm thinking, yeah, he was on SmackDown. He should have been on Raw, man. He needs to be on the show that's got more time frame so they can fit him in somewhere. I mean, I ain't got a clue, man.
No, at this point, it's hard to know what to do. I think a lot of people suggested Judgment Day in the past. I think he would be a good fit for that, especially if the Damien Priest thing, say he left the group, that would be a good replacement for it. But yeah, at this point, his own stable, they need to stop putting him against top names, in my opinion, for now. I think they need to start putting him against mid to lower card acts, try and build some wins, try and build some momentum, try and give him more than just a week to build a story.
He should be in that United States Championship scene, if anything.
Yeah.
Like, almost like how Bobby Lashley was with Austin Theory. I think Kross could be the new replacement. Like, do you know what I mean? Take over from Bobby Lashley and be that big guy in amongst all those kind of like 6'2" guys. Do you know what I mean? Have Karrion Kross in there as a dominant force.
That's what they should be doing, and hopefully at some point we'll see it at somewhere down the line. But it doesn't seem to be anywhere in the near future. Daz Reynolds asking us about the blind eliminator tournament. Do we put the icon Sting with anyone? Unfortunately, I don't think there's any room to, because we've got the semi-final matches next week. I went to try and find out who it was, but unfortunately my connection was letting me down. But one thing is for sure, I can say safely should be in the finals. It should be Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin versus Adam Cole and MJF, in my personal opinion. I believe Brian Cage and Big Bill will be one of the opponents this upcoming week on Dynamite, and I unfortunately don't get a chance to see the other one. I'll try and call it up for you, but what will be your take on this, Nick, Steve?
That Big Bill Powerhouse Hobbs team, Brian Cage team,
Yeah.
that team to me was awesome. Like, I sat there and looked at it and I went, I can get behind that. Like we were saying before we started this blind tournament thing is such a great way to put random people together and just give them something to do. And I watched the highlights from that tag team match with Brian Cage and Big Bill, and I was like, these guys, that combo finisher, the powerbomb clothesline finisher, was just amazing in my opinion. And I was like, I could quite happily watch these guys go again. You're right. It probably is going to be Orange Cassidy and Darby versus MJF and Adam Cole. But then who have MJF and Adam Cole got next? Is it Hobbs?
They've got Big Bill and Brian Cage. Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin have Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia, an actual JS team, if you will. But of course, they kind of not always got along, but they will have to get along this upcoming week on AEW TV. So
I'd personally like to see the fallout of Adam Cole and MJF happen in that tag team match. I would be happier watching Big Bill and Brian Cage go through to the final. I think this is the first time in a long time Brian Cage is actually doing something relevant on AEW where he's not pissing around with that FTW championship. Excuse my French.
No, that's fair enough indeed. Obviously, he's been with a Ring of Honor 6-man tag team champion as well with his group as well currently. But like you say, that you see him for a cup of coffee when it's on AEW. He doesn't really get to do big stuff anymore, unfortunately. But
that's what I mean. And with the ROH being behind a paywall, not a lot of people are seeing that stuff. Do you know what I mean? Unless you go and find like, YouTube highlights or whatever, like someone's like not supposed to have put on there. But I would much rather have seen him on AEW put like on national TV. Do you know what I mean? Doing something.
Absolutely. Well, let's ask a quick question as we've got this part. We can wrap this up in one segment, really, with the Blind Eliminator tournament. So I give my prediction for the final there, but and you said you prefer Adam Cole and MJF to not make it to the final. My question will revolve around the obviously the main feud going on for the what will be the World Heavyweight Championship. Do they coexist to win this tournament and then it blows off in the tag team title match, or does it blow off in the final of this tournament? Because clearly it's not going to last forever. I would think it'd be horrifying if they became the AEW tag team champions. It's one of my nitpicks. I'm not a big fan of in professional wrestling, although I will say I'm enjoying their segments together. They were pretty entertaining on Dynamite this past week.
Yeah, I would rather not. I would rather it not be in a tag team title match. I'd rather it be in the final or in the semi-final or whatever. I think you're taking away from an opportunity for someone else there to be in a championship match there. These guys are feuding over the AEW World Championship. I think if you get the tag team titles involved, it's going to be kind of almost like the Bloodline in some ways, that all the titles are going to be wrapped up in one storyline, and it's like you've got nothing else for anyone else on your TV show. It kills it for me. And it also, it's obviously copy and paste. Like we've seen this done so many times before. So yeah, I don't want to see it.
No. So for that reason, I'm actually going to predict that I think Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin will win this entire tournament.
Yeah, I think seeing them to overcome a team of Brian Cage and Big Bill will do great things for them.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, that's our take on it, Daz. Hopefully that's answered your question. Sadly, though, Sting not involved in it. Would have been fun to have seen him a part of it. But DWE says, for me, I think LA Knight is still rising. They're going to wait until it's fever pitch, and we're building with that a few more weeks, and then for a shot to him to be the top guy. If they push LA Knight to hit fast, he becomes Flavour of the month. Interesting point that's been made there. Do you reckon that it's right to delay, or do you reckon that if we were to push him now, there is an argument saying he doesn't win the United States Championship, he becomes Flavour of the month?
The problem, this is why the Money in the Bank briefcase would have been perfect on him, because what is there to build him with in the next 6 months? Because until the Rumble, there's not like a King of the Ring tournament, or do you know what I mean, or something out there where he can make a name for himself or put himself on a higher pedestal than what he's currently at. Which is why Money in the Bank would have been perfect, because not that he was probably ever going to cash in on Roman Reigns, but the fact is that he could show up on Raw, he could show up on SmackDown, he could show up in NXT. The guy's so over, man, and you can see that with every time he comes out. Like the crowd reactions are just immense for him. Like I said a couple of minutes ago, the Money in the Bank was the main thing. I think going forward, you've got SummerSlam. Yeah, sure, maybe he's going to get a US title shot, but what's after that until the Rumble? There's not many other things he can do unless he gets like a decent story narrative wise. But like we've just seen on SmackDown, he doesn't even make it on TV like in the last week.
Absolutely, but as now he's potentially, we've speculated the idea of Austin Theory. Austin Theory managed to defeat one Sheamus this past week. Could there potentially be a match at SummerSlam? We'll have to wait and see. C Nation goes on to say, on regards of that, LA Knight may beat Austin Theory to win the United States Championship at SummerSlam, but it could be AJ Styles instead, depending on what WWE does. There are a lot of contenders that could go for Austin Theory's US title. I think a lot of people at this point though would like to see LA Knight be that guy. That's certainly, if they were looking to just leave it 1 week because they wanted Theory to wrap up the stuff with the Brawling Brutes to then move on to do a program starting next week, that would be forgiven, wouldn't it?
You'd think so. You would think so, but it's whether it happens or not. This is the biggest problem.
That is the big problem. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, we can't tell at this point, but I'm predicting it. So I'm going to stick my neck out and hope that it happens. Shout out to Tiffany, who's watching the show. Says hi, Stephen. I wonder if that's for you or for me.
This is all my wife sending all her friends over.
Oh, we appreciate it. Thank you for sending them over to Tiffany, and also Taylor as well in the house. Taylor Grace, thank you for checking out. Hope you are keeping well. Richard here suggesting the idea of Austin Theory to face Santos Escobar at SummerSlam. I mean, there's a lot of people that could go for that in the United States Championship. It's a hot scene right now if they wanted to do it. C Nation says it would be cool if Chris Jericho was on the BCC side and if Adam Cole was on the Elite side, because they just had a feud with each other and have history with other wrestlers in the match. So that's also something they could tease and work along with as well if they wanted to reunite the Adam Cole and Chris Jericho feud. Although for me, I think I prefer them to leave that in the rearview mirror purely because it just didn't work out in the end for me, that feud. But at the same time, though, it's not a bad suggestion, is it?
Yeah, it's not a bad suggestion. It's just I'd rather Kota Ibushi, if I'm honest. Like, the guy hasn't been seen for so long, and he's such a good wrestler, man.
I would agree with you 100%. Sinison says Roman doesn't need the undisputed WWE Universal Championship for this Bloodline storyline. That's a big question mark there for me on that one. I feel he does as well because he's the head of that. Makes him the head of the table. It makes him the trouble chief. The day he loses that, every that prestige of what all those things that he's been saying and preaching for the last 3 years is nothing anymore. I know the Sinison is desperate for him to lose that championship.
Yeah, it's everyone's desperate for him to lose it, man. It's been a 3.5 year, like nearly 4 year journey, and it's just a case of if and when, really. And it's like we're all waiting for that moment, but whoever wins it, I'd hope it's like the making of someone. Like obviously we have the whole Cody and finish the story thing, but imagine if it was just someone like a Jey Uso, for instance, and this just like imagine how hard a crowd would pop if Jey Uso beat Roman Reigns for that title. It would be immense.
It would have a big magical moment if it was to happen. The big question point. Those who said though is what happens afterwards. But of course, we're worried about that problem when it happens. But I guess WWE has to consider it now.
Roman disappears for 6 months.
That's probably some potential as well. I imagine he would disappear till SummerSlam when they do it, if it's at WrestleMania next year. Richard says LA Knight always loses on pay-per-views. Seems to lose a lot of the matches on SmackDown as well. But the momentum is starting to creep back in. So we'll see what happens with LA Knight as we push forward.
To be fair, if you think about that now logically, they're doing the right thing by making him lose, because when he eventually does get a big win for, i.e., a United States Championship, it's going to be a bigger moment.
Absolutely, I think it will be a big moment. And the thing is as well, I think LA Knight, if he won Money in the Bank, that's the championship he would have cashed in on anyway. So if he can do it without the briefcase, I think it will still be a win-win all around personally. But yeah, we'll see how it does progress. But Robbie Collins in the house. Robbie, hope you're doing well, my friend. Good to see you here with us. And of course, Gemma Silk in the house as well. She hope you're doing well, Gemma. And she's got a great question for us as well. Dream match wrestlers past and present. And Steve, I'll let you start with this then. Do you have a dream match with wrestlers past and present?
Just for the absolute turd of a show that it would be, I'm going to go Ultimate Warrior versus Goldberg.
Oh, okay, yeah, throwing one right out there.
Just because everyone knows that Warrior wasn't the greatest in ring, but like it was all about the intro and the face paint and everything else. Goldberg, he's not the greatest in ring wrestler, and he's all about the intro and the pyro. And it would be like, I'd be excited to see what those two guys could do, because it'd just be a Warrior delivering some questionable clotheslines and then Goldberg hitting a spear, really, and it would just be like, I'd be interested to know who would win that match.
It would be fascinating indeed. I'll give a few. I've tried to think of while you've given an answer there. The obvious one for me is AJ Styles versus Shawn Michaels. I would have loved to have seen that match go down. I know it rumored in 2017 at one point, but never did happen. But obviously, in my opinion, the best growing up against the best of the modern day, I think would be an awesome match to see. Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle is one I would have loved to have seen had it have been a possibility. But sadly, Bret Hart's career had to end. So that although not necessarily present, I still feel it's a dream match that certainly could have happened. And Kurt Angle did stop a few years ago. I did have one more in mind. Take a Sting would be a massive one, wouldn't it?
Roman, because it still hasn't happened yet.
Still hasn't happened. So yeah, there are some big ones there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could go on all day really.
Owen Hart versus Chad Gable.
Oh, what a great match that would be. Oh, I like that.
You know, right?
It would be a really good one. I'd like that. That's a great question, Gemma. Thank you for sharing that with us. Richard says, who attacked Wendy Chu in the NXT parking lot? It was Blair Davenport. NXT's Blair Davenport. She did get involved and she's attacked quite a few people in that parking lot. Sination Dog says, Karrion Kross just had bad timing because of the world champion of SmackDown is a heel, which is Roman Reigns. I think that's a good argument. Obviously, they wanted to bring him back in the top position, but yeah, I mean, when your top guy is a heel across both shows, it's hard to get him into a world title scene. But now would have been a good chance to put him on Raw, as we said earlier on, but it's just not connected. But Irish Wrestling and Entertainment says Kross, it needs to be in the stable. He's lost. Scarlett and him together don't work. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, is this becoming Sable Mark Mero?
Kind of, because their presentation almost is like it is at the minute. It's mostly about that intro, and Scarlett kind of is the main important thing in that entrance, really. But I'm all up for a stable. I think I suggested once before that the Grizzled Young Veterans in with Kross and Scarlett would be a great faction, because those two I'm so gutted that they've. Do you know what I mean? They're leaving NXT, and they're probably going to go into AEW, and just like people are going to take their shoes off for I can't even remember his proper name.
Zach Gibson.
Zach Gibson. Yeah, I've got dyad names in my head. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, like I'm honestly, they were so unfortunate. Like they should have been the ones to take the tag team titles off of MSK. It never happened, and then they got lost with this like Joe Gacy storyline. But yeah, I think if you'd have put them with Kross, I think it would have been a quality little faction.
Yeah, I would agree. It would have been nice to see that as a faction, actually. I always thought JD McDonough would have been good fit with Karrion Kross, especially as both of them need a haircut. But yeah, just a personal preference, you know.
And to be fair, where is JD McDonough? We ain't seen him since he had a backstage segment with Finn like weeks ago.
I think they're waiting for the right moment to put Finn and JD together. The question is JD going to be part of Judgment Day, or is Finn going to be out of Judgment Day and they become a tag team? That's the big question mark for me. But I think they've got the plan in the works.
I think Judgment Day is like it's weeks away from splitting. I think that Priest is going to go off and do his own thing because he's got that briefcase. Finn's going to go off. Those two are probably going to have some sort of rivalry, and then Dom and Rhea are just going to go off and be the new China Eddie Guerrero combination, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a possibility. I wouldn't be surprised at this point. It does feel like Vince wants the end of Judgment Day, which for me, I'm not sure I wanted that personally. I wasn't ready for it. But we'll wait and see how it will play out. But Robbie Collins says, I thought Kross would have been good with Bray in a storyline. Both very dramatic characters and could have built a very good story. Maybe could have had Alexa and Scarlett too going at it. Obviously, before Alexa announced that she was pregnant. But I really like the idea that Robbie's presented here, because if you're going to bring Bray back, I actually think Kross would be a good fit for a feud. I know they're both heels right now, but I mean, you could go with Bray as the face if you wanted to, if you wanted to start doing the Fiend stuff again or whatnot. But I mean, like you say, both of those have kind of got that dark mystique and can go into the, if you want the, I always call it the spooky bollocks, but if you want to go down that avenue, you know, if you want to go down that, I think that those two can actually work it together rather than taking someone out there and it's going to work with Bray and it's going to probably damage their reputation. Kross right now, it can't get much worse. You saw with LA Knight, he got thrown into it and being the mega star out of it. It could be something that could just actually work pretty well for Kross.
Yeah, I mean, Kross's mic work isn't the best. Like, from all his memorable quotes, I can't remember him off, you know what I mean? So I think if you had him mouse for him, and again, at least literally say his TikTok, it would work for me. And I think, but yeah, it would. You could even have Scarlett incorporate some sort of Sister Abigail thing. I don't know, but yeah, it would have been a pretty cool dynamic.
Yeah, I think it would have been a pretty cool dynamic. I like that idea there, Robbie, absolutely. And shame that at this moment it's not something that could happen. C-Nation asking what happened to that Bobby Nash and Austin Theory feud. It finished, I guess. Bobby's been off TV for a while now. Rumored to be coming back around SummerSlam time, so it'll be interesting to see if he does fit in anywhere on the card. But I'd like to think that feud would be all finished. Richard giving his prediction.
This is the biggest problem: is what does he do?
I guess after Jay, he could go for Roman. That's a match I want to see. That you know, Roman versus Bobby in these carnation of these characters. But
hopefully,
I have to wait and see. That would be something I'd be down for. Richard R saying Trish and Zoe versus Becky and a wrestler who is NXT brand for WWE SummerSlam. One who Richard has in mind. It seems that most likely at the moment will be a singles match with Becky and Trish. But we'll have to wait and see how it will play out. C-Nation says, I do not watch Ring of Honor. Sorry, but AEW ruined Ring of Honor for me. Oh, that's a shame. I just think that there's timing issues.
That's the point I make with Brian Cage, though. He's on ROH, and do you know what I mean? I didn't know he was a 6-man champion until I saw the highlights with him and Big Bill.
Absolutely, indeed. There, Robbie goes on to say, "I just want them to do something with LA Knight. They can't just keep him off TV until his character dies down. He needs a title." Again, we've already screamed the praises of LA Knight during the stream. We 100% agree. Temple Blaze Ian House has got a few comments in regarding the Blood and Guts match. He says even adds who will be the fifth member for each team: Kota Ibushi for the Elite and Chris Hero for the BCC. But if you bleed with the BCC, you join them. So Evil Uno is the choice here from Temple Blaze. Of course, we didn't even talk about the Dark Order earlier on. Obviously, they've been getting involved quite a bit actually in this rivalry. Evil Uno could be one. John Silver, Alex Reynolds. Would you be down for seeing someone from the Dark Order involved in Blood and Guts?
Not really. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying that they're doing essentially more heelish work now. Like, it's what I always thought that the Dark Order was supposed to be, was this evil faction instead of this. Do you know what I mean? BTE like comedy gimmick, which don't get me wrong was fantastic, but I actually like the shout out Chris Hero. I think like it's one I didn't actually think of. Obviously, he has history with Claudio Castagnoli, so I like the idea of that.
Yeah, I'm open to that one. And of course, you know, with AEW, they kind of assume you know a lot of that sort of stuff as well. So it definitely can fit in of working with that hardcore fan base as well. Temple Blaze also says Shota from New Japan won't be there, as we mentioned earlier, due to the G1 climax. And most of the New Japan stars will be working that this year. So kind of rules a lot of them out. So yeah, I do agree with that. Sinistra says, fun fact, Austin Theory is one of the longest reigning US champions. In fact, he's the longest in a decade now. Obviously, Dean Ambrose is the record at the moment in the last decade, but Austin Theory not far from it. But Austin Theory has defended a lot more titles than Dean Ambrose did as US champion. Temple Blaze goes on to say, I'd like LA Knight to win the Royal Rumble next year, as he didn't go on to win Money in the Bank. US title, I'd rather see Austin Theory versus Grayson Waller. LA Knight doesn't need the US title. For me, I just feel, though, that if you look at Gunther on the Raw side, what he's done with the IC title, of course, with SmackDown it began, the reign has taken him to the point that he is now, where these mid-card titles are meant to mean something, if you can make it, and it can add to that rocket to get you to the top. Everyone compares LA Knight to Steve Austin and The Rock. Obviously, Kevin Nash has done that famously this week as well, saying he didn't see anything special. Look, a lot of wrestlers have taken things from all different people. Nothing's original if we're being brutally honest about it. But LA Knight has found something that gets old.
Kevin Nash.
Yeah. Literally. I mean, Kevin Nash didn't invent the powerbomb. Let's start that to begin with. But I mean, LA Knight has found something that works really, really well, and it's connecting. If you look at Steve Austin, he won the IC title on the road to becoming the world champion. In fact, Austin won King of the Ring in 96, won the Royal Rumble in 97, went on to become, I believe, Intercontinental champion. And then it was 98, he went and won the world title. So it built kind of slowly and progressively. The Rock also went with the IC title back in, I think it was 97, 98 time. 98, I think, was the time. And with his feud with Ken Shamrock. And obviously that built him then for later in the year to go for the world title. I think that the mid-card title could be a goldmine for LA Knight if he was to take that right now.
Do you know, exactly, man. Even the King of the Ring, like you said there with Austin, like I think I spoke about it before, but imagine LA Knight pulling an Austin promo after winning King of the Ring. It'd be fantastic. It'd be amazing. But it's just whether they do it or not, man. This is the problem. And I appreciate Temple's suggestion here of Knight to win the Rumble, but it's just so unbelievable at this minute. Like he's got no momentum because they're having him lose on pay-per-views. Like I'm sure it was maybe C Nation said, like he's lost every pay-per-view match. Do you know what I mean? He's got a spot at the minute, and they just don't want to push him any higher than that.
I think it was Richard Jr. actually that wrote that earlier on, but no, it's fine. But at the same time, I kind of agree with the sentiment here because I'd like to see it. It's just, will they do it? But obviously, there's time between now and the Royal Rumble. Lots of time to build someone up. So we mentioned, what if they did that with Solo? So there is that idea there. Temple, we hope it happens. We'll have to wait and see if it will happen. Obviously, Grayson will also a heck of a talent. I'm sure he's got a very bright future ahead. Eric Douglas says, do we think we'll get a female Blood and Guts this year? We mentioned it earlier on. Sadly, it doesn't look like it's going to happen now this year. They've already advertising a Blood and Guts show. We've got one match. It's going to be the Elite versus the BCC. Would we love a women's match? Of course, yes, we would, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to happen now. Sination says, yeah, but if Roman Reigns loses that unified WWE Universal Championship, he would still be called the Tribal Chief. But would he be the head of the table? He would be eating off somebody else's plate.
I think he goes on a serious downward spiral after losing that title. Like he's dejected. a dejected man on his own, and he's outcast from his family because he no longer is world champion. He lost the respect of his cousins and all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So I kind of on the side there of NXT on that for me. But essentially goes on to say the story could be Solo and Jimmy and Jay. The Usos betray Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and then it could be Roman proving he's still the Tribal Chief. You don't need a belt for everything. I mean, that's a storyline narrative can work afterwards, because if you're twisting it to try and prove he's still the top of the family, totally get that. But I don't think we're at that stage yet of where that will happen.
For me, I think that takes away from whoever beats him then, because Roman needs to lose without interference. He needs to if Roman then loses the title because Jimmy, Jay, and Solo, whoever cost him the title, I think it really takes away from whoever wins it off of him.
Absolutely, and perhaps that person could be Cody Rhodes, because Tiffany's got a question for us now. Do you think Cody Rhodes will get another shot at the undisputed WWE Championship?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really want to say he's favourite to win the Rumble next year. He might be. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, I think I'm not even sure that Roman's even going to lose. Like I said months ago, that Roman isn't losing that championship until at least Mania next year. I don't even think it'll be even then, if I'm honest.
Wow. I mean, for me, if it's not WrestleMania next year, how long does it go on for? He would literally become Roman Sammartino at this point. I think, Tiffany, that Cody will get another shot. The question is when. I think Mania 40 is the time it can be, because of the draft is meant to mean something, but we know how WWE plays it. But it also depends with the Survivor Series. Obviously, we'll be getting Raw versus SmackDown again. There was no advertisement for War Games. I did a short on it yesterday. NXT, what's your take on the fact that Survivor Series this year currently not advertised as War Games? If we were to get Raw versus SmackDown again, could that be a place that Cody could get a shot at Roman Reigns? You could have a SmackDown style go for Seth, or do you just do Seth versus Roman at this point?
Seth versus Roman I think is the safest bet, because apart from Jay, Seth's the only guy to have beaten Roman. All right, yes, via DQ, but he's the only other guy to have won a match against him. I think that's a bigger match in itself at this moment than Cody Rhodes one.
I have to wait and see how it will play
But
out.
sorry, yeah, just to add on the fact they've taken War Games out, I think is stupid. I think the War Games dynamic was really good last year, and this is obviously just another Vince McMahon call.
It feels like it could be a Vince call at this particular moment. He is signing everything off. Temple Places, the Dyad from NXT, aka JYV, should be NXT Tag Team Champions by the end of the year for me, and they need to be. Call up both Creeds and Gallus. Creeds versus Academy, and Gallus with a heel Drew. Loving the fantasy booking there from Temple Plays there. Would love to see JYV in that position. Of course, they did win the Loser Leaves NXT match, so the Creeds will be released to the main roster at some point in the near future.
But then, from what I'm hearing, apparently that's not actually the case, and the Creed brothers aren't actually going to be called up, which is strange in itself. But you would have thought that with the contracts of the Dyads or GYV expiring soon, that they would have been the ones written off TV, and then they would have just paid them to sit at home for the next couple of months until their contracts expire.
Interesting. I mean, I guess catering must be good if the Creeds aren't doing anything after this for a while, but you'd have to hope so anyway. But yeah, we'll see how it will play out. But CNation does say the Creeds are coming to the main roster soon, perhaps after SummerSlam. There is rumours. I saw Tom Conahue's stream the other day suggesting that quite a few people will be going for a bit of a break after SummerSlam. Obviously, that will leave some gaps on the roster, which will give the opportunity to introduce some new talent, perhaps maybe, and now it goes in the speculation station for me, perhaps maybe like of a Bron Breakker, Roxanne Perez, Creed brothers, those sort of people could be finding a spot on the roster after all, after SummerSlam this year. C-Nation says, unpopular opinion, Karrion Kross is nothing without Scarlett. In Impact Wrestling, they tried to build him up without Scarlett, but it didn't work. Interesting. I don't know an unpopular opinion. I think that for me, the problem was they said, I did like him as well. I think the problem was they actually paired him up with Austin Aries.
Yeah, that's the bigger problem. Yeah, no, Kross was awesome. Like, when he what was it? He was the security guard, wasn't he? And he attacked I forget who it was, and he left the cross mark on him. And I was like, oh man, what a great way to introduce who it is. Like, I wasn't obviously I didn't know a lot about Kross at the time, so I thought it was a great way to do it. And I actually enjoyed Scarlett being her own person away from Kross at the time.
Absolutely. I mean, I liked his Impact run personally, but I can see that he wasn't the world champion, so I see where C Nation, I guess, is coming from with it. Temple Play says, talk about a heel Drew with Gallows versus the Brawling Brutes. Butch would have a fresh feud and that stipulation, and they did forget the name. The effing Bridge, by the way, for Ridge there. Yeah, I mean, that would be a fun bit. Again, fantasy book in there, but I do like the situation with it. Of course, Drew is on Raw at the minute. It was the only letdown for that, but it does seem like a lot of fun. C Nation says JD McDonough needs to finish the feud with Dolph Ziggler. They had a double count out in their last match. They did a long time ago now. I actually forgotten about it till you mentioned it, for being brutally honest. So yeah, maybe they've reinvested it on main event or something. I'm not sure at this point. We've got the family maybe back together because it's Channing Stacks Lorenzo beats Joe and Coffey. Then him and Tony D'Angelo get a match for the NXT Tag Team titles. But if he loses, Tony D'Angelo will be in jail for a long time. This is true. This was on NXT this past week. So it looks like that Stacks Lorenzo kind of teased to get what he wanted here with Joe Coffey, made it look like he was stabbing D'Angelo in the back, but actually is betting on himself to make this deal, although D'Angelo doesn't have faith that Stacks will be able to do it with the 3-on-1 odds. I'm guessing Stacks will find a way to get this job done on Tuesday, but it's an exciting storyline. I'm enjoying this.
Nah, man, I'm still hoping Stacks is the rat. I'm hoping like he's the one, because I said this to you a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, nah, man, Stacks is the rat, 100%. Makes total sense. He's the rat, and I really hope they stick with it, man. Like, and they just find some other sort of, I don't know, like Tony D manages to do a prison break or something and escapes from it, and then, do you know what I mean, just arrives at NXT. Then he spends the next few weeks just avoiding the feds every week, and then he ends up getting some evidence that turns out that Stacks set him up, and it wasn't actually Tony D. I think it'd be funny as anything.
Shawn Michaels, if you're watching, book it. I love that. That's magic. NXT uses their environment so well. They use all
the car
of they
park
use
is the deadliest place in the world.
Absolutely, you wouldn't dare. Like, you know, you sign a professional contract. You're going to go and join NXT. I've got to go and walk through that car park. You know, you feel a bit hairy going on your first day, wouldn't you? Let's be fair. Like, you know, so
absolutely.
Yeah, they know how to use their environment very, very well indeed. So yeah, I like what they're doing with NXT at the moment with this as well. Temple Places James, who winning the Undisputed World Title would be like Matt Jackson winning the AEW World Title. I think Jay does it. Jimmy gets jealous, and we see Jimmy versus Jay down the line. I like the idea of the jealousy storyline, but yeah, it's, as I said, I've already given my take on this a little bit. I do believe that, you know, what next when Jay does it, if he was to do it, for example. But obviously the challenge has been put out. I'm guessing Roman Reigns will accept it. I'm guessing it will be SummerSlam, and it will be the main event. And let's be fair, they've done a heck of a job on SmackDown this past week to just build that as the main event of this show. They don't even really need to do anything now between now and SummerSlam of everything they did in MSG.
Yeah, it's just a case of what they're going to do to fill the time on TV. Like, don't get me wrong, maybe they put LA Knight on TV just for a laugh. So, but I'm interested to see how they build it. So, because it still hasn't officially been set as a challenge for that World Championship. So, hopefully, like, we get something along the lines. But I'm just gonna like early prediction here for me. Jay's winning via DQ. Like, that's what I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna say Roman chokes him out just like he did before in Hell in a Cell. Or no, not with Jay. He did it with someone else, with Seth, like at the Rumble. I reckon that's how Jay wins. And I think that it protects Roman, but also gives Jay the massive build up.
Interesting. I have Roman winning. That's my feeling at the moment. It seems like the obvious way, doesn't it, to go? But
every time I make a prediction with Roman, I've got it wrong. So, you know, take that for what it is when it comes to me predicting Roman Reigns matches. Every time I predicted it, complete opposite. Every time I say Drew's going to win, he lost. Who's going to win? Cody's going to win, he lost. Then literally last week I told him, yeah, Roman's going to win, he lost. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to give up predicting Roman Reigns matches, I think. But just to add on to that Jay versus Jimmy thing, apparently, like, I saw a video earlier on the week, and that's the dream. I don't know if you heard that, Steve. You might have cut out for some reason.
I did cut out for a second there. It's a bit disappointing that, unfortunately. Go on, give that to me one more time.
I literally just saying Jimmy and Jay's dream is to have a one-on-one match at Mania.
Ah, there we are. Well, that would be interesting if they did go down that avenue at some point there. Ghost Spider in the house. Hope you're doing well, Ghost Spider. Thank you for joining us. C Nation here as well says Bobby Lashley and Fury never had another United States Championship match to finish their feud. True, but they must have had about 50 beforehand. So fingers crossed that there isn't any more at this point for me. I'm done with them too at this moment. NXT, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You can. That's always good news because if it is breaking up, at least we know then I can still be heard. Typical places, but I do hope we get a four-way match for the title of all the Bloodline in the match. I like that idea. The whole Bloodline story ends at Payback, not SummerSlam, because Roman Reigns reign did begin at Payback. I've seen he's not advertised for the show, but I'm with Temple here that they need to have Roman on the Payback show this year. Why else bring that pay-per-view back?
Yeah, it kind of, I don't know, unless it's the narrative from a different championship that this is going to be the whole. And I'm trying to think what it could be for Steph, for example. But yeah, it makes sense for it to be Roman.
It would, wouldn't it? It would make a total sense to do that. But Tell what Blaze can carry on to say when Jay wins, we're going to get the Bloodline storyline continue with Jimmy and Solo. I feel that when this will end, it'll be like the Fast and Furious franchise. It never stops. I like that there. Cena says, I feel bad for the Dark Order. The story is simple. Dark Order is the most loyal to Hangman Adam Page during the hardest times. But Hangman Adam Page chose his toxic relationship with the Elite. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it sums up Hangman Adam Page perfectly, really, doesn't it? He seems to always go back with the toxic environment, even though really the Dark Order are the ones in the right, really, in the situation. But and we are where we are with it. It's a fun storyline to see play out, though. Cena says, sorry for being kind of off topic, but this is a Q&A. You bring the topics. Did you know Blue Cane is a thing on the Indies? I have seen it on Twitter.
It's hilarious. It's like 1998 Kane in a blue suit. It's amazing.
I love it. I think it's awesome. Temple Blade's giving a dream match here. Owen Hart versus Bryan Danielson, but sadly it would never happen. It would be incredible if it ever did. But yeah, fantastic choice there. Unfortunately, it wouldn't. But Cody Rhodes wins the Royal Rumble next year, challenges Roman Reigns for the Universal title. We haven't had back-to-back Royal Rumble winners in a while. We haven't. Also with back-to-back WrestleMania main events we've not had for a while either. So I mean, you would have ruled it out at this point, but certainly would be interesting.
I think for me, if Cody is going to win the Rumble, he needs to come out like an earlier number than 30.
Yeah, I would prefer him actually to go for the adversity, the story, actually finish the story. Yeah. If he's got to finish it, not number one. One wins it too often these days, but in the first 10 like would be quite nice.
Something. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in the first half for sure. Karrion Kross does need a faction. If you look how he's been booked, honestly, out of Retribution led by Kross, you can have like Ciampa, Dijak, Loomis, Ali, gave you stable. He's booked in the series there. Of course, Temple Plays does do fantasy booking and of course a lot of gameplay on his channel. So make sure to go and check it out. But that certainly would be quite a hell of a faction put together there. Nubico says, will we see the women's US title, an IC title, and NXT women's North American title for the women's division at some point? Great question. I still have belief that at the moment I don't see it happening. Obviously, there are so many championships. The men's side has too many. And I just think if they had more in the women's, it would just get lost in the shuffle.
The North American is a possibility now that they've got rid of their NXT tag team titles, but they can't even book the women's tag team titles at the minute. Like, it's only recently we've got something interesting out of it. So the IC in the US are a no-go, but the North American, I reckon, is the most likely because I think that NXT women's roster needs something else now they've taken away the tag titles.
Yeah, I think you could be right, actually, now that you mentioned that. They could definitely do it. And that mid-card title could actually work really, really nice, actually. So maybe for NXT, certainly a possibility. Nubico says, I don't count on it because Gallus is the ones that framed Tony D'Angelo. This certainly were indeed there. Dad says, I think Samoa Joe could join. Yeah, there's ratings that Samoa Joe could join the Elite unless he's on Collision. He seems to be on Collision at the moment. I know they're doing Ring of Honor tapings on the same night as well, so I think that goes hand in hand with it. But I don't see why Joe couldn't do a Wednesday. I don't think he's too bothered about everything that's going on with this beef with the Elite and CM Punk. Several places, if Brody Lee was still here, I think the Dark Order would be half of the group they are. Half the group they are now. I think that this Blood and Guts would have been a 3-man stable Blood and Guts. Certainly could have been a possibility. Again, just a shame we have not got Brody with us for it to to see how it would have played out. Ghostwriter says, do you guys think Drew McIntyre will dethrone Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship? NXT be quick in there with a no.
No, I cannot see it happening. This is my big worry for Drew, is like he's come back, and like there's obviously all the rumors speculating about his contract being up at the end of the year, but I think that it's got to be Sheamus, man. This is why it was so stupid for him not to pull the trigger at Clash last year. Like, unless that's the angle that Drew wins it and then he has a feud with Sheamus. I know I think they're on opposite shows because I can never keep up to date with who's on what show with the brand split. But yeah, I think Gunther's just going to keep going. I think that it's going to be, we've discussed it before, like a triple threat scenario where Gunther doesn't have to take a pin, for example.
Absolutely. But what I will say, though, while I agree with the triple threat idea, I do think Drew McIntyre will be the one. I just don't think it'll be at SummerSlam. I'm going to go for Fastlane because that's when Gunther should have beaten the record. He will beat the record at this point. I will go all the way to Fastlane for it to happen. C-Nation says Channing Stacks Lorenzo did say he was going to be the new Don. Channing Stacks Lorenzo never explained why he said that part. Certainly didn't. So it'll be interesting to see how there's more layers to this storyline. So I'll do my friend's quote of the day. Absolutely. I'm going to do my friend's quote of the streams. They always seem to do one recently. Peel the onion. I'm looking forward to seeing these layers as they come along. Several places, don't get me started with Kevin Nash. He would hurt his knees by just stepping outside of his home. It's a fair point.
This guy acts like he was talking like he invented wrestling. Like, I'm sorry, none of your skill base was anything new, man. There's nothing you did that shocked the wrestling world apart from turning up in WCW one day. That was it.
There you go. It's a fair argument indeed there. Ghostwriter says LA Knight versus Austin Theory should happen at SummerSlam or Payback. I'm going SummerSlam. That's where I want to see it go down. But Payback's not a bad alternative. C-Nation says I want to see the Elite eventually turn their back on Hangman Adam Page again, and then see Hangman Adam Page go back to the Dark Order, and then Dark Order says it's too late. They've already technically said it's too late, but Hangman kind of is that lost soul, isn't he? He's kind of like that puppy dog. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did do that trigger at some point somewhere down the line.
He's been in limbo since he won that AEW, since he lost the AEW World Championship. He's had, for me personally, nothing decent and creative.
Absolutely. I love a good The Game of Limbo, by the way, just on an off topic. But C-Nation does, these jokes do get worse, don't they? C-Nation says, I would take away the women's tag team titles on the main roster and add a women's intercontinental title. It's easier to book. AEW has done it with the TBS title. Fair argument, fair point. Obviously, we do have these women's tag team titles still at present, and it seems to be hard to build a division. Although singles division probably would be easier to book. I just worry at the TV time if they would struggle to book it with not a Raw and SmackDown champion anymore, but a women's and a world champion now.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do that, it'd be a case of that Intercontinental Championship would stay on Raw because there just ain't enough time on SmackDown to book everything else plus a second women's mid-card title. Whereas that's the good thing about the tag titles is you can just split it across either show.
Absolutely. And if you look as well with AEW, obviously they have a women's champion and a TBS champion. They don't have two women's champions. So technically that is the second women's championship. So I think that's what helps that out as well. Temple Plane says probably the question of the night. Where the hell is Odyssey Jones? No pun intended. He's been drafted to Raw and we've not seen him. Don't call him up. He's not going to feature him on Raw. Why? Now, this question was actually brought to Tom Colicue. So I'm quickly just going to say, apparently there are plans in place for Odyssey Jones. They've just not been executed yet. I wonder if they've been dropped, Steve.
That's the same with everyone we've ever heard up that's being called up. I'm sorry, there's plans in place for Bray Wyatt, but it hasn't showed up. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised that he does a Gable Stevenson and is drafted and then goes back to NXT. He pops up back on NXT in a year's time.
Maybe. Wouldn't be a surprise at all. Honestly, to be fair, I mean, the guy was a very likable dude. I was really shocked when I see him called up because I thought to myself that he'd had a horrible injury in NXT and not really had the chance to sort of get the heights of what perhaps maybe we thought he would be capable of doing. It kind of felt like he was shot put straight to a Monday Night Raw. or shot put to main event, and it's a shame nothing's happened since. But wish him well. Hope everything's good, and I hope he gets his opportunity at some point in the near future. Just actually add on to that, because I'm actually nearly up to date with the chat. Sinister says, I forgot that Odyssey Jones was drafted to Raw. I almost forgot Gable Stevenson was drafted to Raw too. He's actually wasn't drafted to Raw this time. He was drafted last time, but yes, he was part of NXT. Just recently with the NXT Underground, which thankfully was a one and done. Although it was probably the best Underground match I've seen.
It was amazing, though, to be fair, which was surprising.
It was, the way that they did it was a much more better presentation than what we saw on Raw. But of course, it was the pandemic when they had done it previously, I guess.
German suplex outside of off the apron to the outside of the ring was mad.
That was actually pretty decent, to be fair. Imagine Chad Gable, Creed Brothers form a faction and a feud with Imperium or Judgment Day. Would love it, Ghost Spider. Would love to see it, honestly.
It's almost a new Team America. Or is it Team Angle? Sorry.
Team Angle, yeah, would love to see it. Richard says, I would do the NXT Women's Intercontinental Championship in the NXT to fix all of this. So, again, a mid-card title to come in then. An IC title would work nicely as well if they wanted to do that for NXT. C Nation Dog says, Sheamus should be the one to beat Gunther, win the Intercontinental Championship in or in a triple threat match. I do not care. Just have to find a way to put Sheamus on Raw. So there we go. C Nation actually proposing a trade at this moment. C Nation says also John Moxley and Hangman Adam Page storyline lasted too long. I think arguably, it was a bit too long, and they're arguably still feuding now if you want. So well, I expect they will be mixing up in blood and guts in a couple of weeks' time. So there we go. Who do we think will be dethroning Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn? Great question from Ghost Spider, because at this moment, does it feel like KO and Sami have a clear direction, really?
No, I'm just trying to sit there and think off the top of my head who's got a lot of momentum behind them at the minute. There is, I mean, you're trying to find a heel tag team somewhere in the roster. I mean, the only ones I can think off the top of my head is Viking Raiders, but they've been losing to Alpha Academy, so they're not exactly getting much heat. Oh, Pretty Deadly. I think there you go. Pretty Deadly is the best shout.
Even though they're the match just recently, I agree. They are the best fitted tag team to do so. It's just not right now for me. But I need can revisit it further down the line.
Check.
Well, that's what we need. We want it. So just give us what we want. Do like Batista. Give us what we want. Ghost Spider says Drew McIntyre versus Braun Breaker. Dream match for WrestleMania 40. Would be a dream match indeed. I think these two would have a heck of a match. Would WrestleMania 40 be too soon? I have to wait and see. Braun Breaker, when he'll be called up to the main roster, time will tell. Steve, we're out of comments. So what I'm going to do, I have a couple of topics I want to talk about just before we finish up here today. I'm going to start off with the potential of Edge's retirement. Is it close? Is it not? Edge did say to the fans this week that he is coming back for the fans and that he has not got any intention of retiring. Of course, he had a match with Grayson Waller on SmackDown, the main event, if you want, main event wrestling match of SmackDown this past week. And I mean, for me, I hope Edge is sticking around. I've always been a big fan of Edge, but he's been around for 25 years now, on and off. And obviously, he did tease with fans last year. He said about, next time he's in Ontario, maybe that would be the finish this time last year. Grayson Waller mentioned Ontario in that segment with the Grayson Waller effect this past week. I'm wondering because not everyone reads the dirt sheets like, other people. I mean, if I see a Dave Meltzer quote, I'm seeing it through somewhere else. I'm not sitting there listening to it either. So, I mean, my question to you is are they putting this in people's faces and ears? Because not everyone keeps up to date with what's going on. And if rumors are about, are they starting the storyline off?
It might be. This might be the very early, drips of, a retirement match, a career versus, do you know what I mean? Something with Edge. I mean, look, I'm blessed to have just had him back since 2019. We had 4 great years. I really wish that, or hope that he gets at least another world championship run. I think that could also be the defining moment where, say, for instance, he goes into 41 as champion, he loses, that's his retirement match. Do you know what I mean? All on the line, championship, retirement. Do you know what I mean? Or I think it'd be a great way to bow out. Like I said, I'm grateful that we've had these last 4 years with him, man. It's like I say, it was cut short, but I want that one more championship run because he never actually lost the world title.
No, that's what I want as well. I know that he didn't win when he had the opportunity back at WrestleMania 37, but for me, I feel that that's especially the World Heavyweight Championship. Like, just let him go to Raw, just go for that
Yeah.
championship. It's win or bust because that would be a perfect way to end it. Like you say, WrestleMania would be a good way. If not, in Canada would be another good way to do it for me. I've always been a massive Edge head. I've been a big fan since. I mean, he mentioned about SummerSlam '98. That's going to be our retro, by the way, and later this month, which I'm really looking forward to, which is the first SummerSlam. Just to see everything he's gone through since obviously part of the TLC matches with Edge Christian, Hardy's, Dudley's first ever Money in the Bank cash in on John Cena, 11-time world champion, some great programs with the likes of The Undertaker, Batista. Edge for me is one of the greats, and like you say, one of the best comebacks ever. The Royal Rumble in 2020. The program with Randy Orton, I did enjoy, despite the very lengthy WrestleMania match. And he's gone on to have some great programs even in the modern era. The Seth Rollins program was fantastic, and obviously, I wish that the AJ Styles match had one more run in it without interference. But at the same time, they did some good stuff by the time they were together.
I'd like to see maybe the Judgment Day go a bit longer than what it was as well. I think when they threw him out, I think for me it was too soon. I'd like to have seen that built a bit more. I was really liking Heel Edge, like that whole dynamic. I thought was great.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel exactly the same as you. But we have 3 comments that have come flying in, so let's see what everyone's got to say about it. Ghost One actually suggesting Edge versus Brock Lesnar, retire match at Crown Jewel there. That would be a big time match to do, though.
It would be, but for me, it needs to put someone over. It needs to be like a Grayson Waller or an Austin Theory. It needs to be someone that it's going to elevate to the next stage. Brock Lesnar's just Brock Lesnar, man. You can do this. You can do this match anytime.
Who would you? I know I'm putting you on the spot here. Who would you reckon should be the right person to put Edge away if it's not a World Championship opportunity?
Aside from, like I said, Theory, Grayson Waller, I'm just trying to think of who's currently out there. Hell, even in not really in LA Knights. I think there's 2. It needs to be someone, Baron Corbin, a reinvented Baron Corbin. I think, yes, we know he's taken Angle's retirement match. It was a bit of a shit show, if I'm honest with you. But I think now that Baron Corbin's getting a reinvented self, I think that if they did it properly, he would be, like, if he was booked correctly and it was done right, Baron Corbin, for me, I think is a great shout.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. I was thinking of someone we spoke about earlier in the stream. Karrion Kross could really do with that as well.
Yeah.
They could, because Edge has gone down the dark side before, obviously not just with the Judgment Day, but also with the Brood. So there's definitely avenues and alleyways they could go down. But if you're going to talk about a money match, legend versus legend, that certainly would be a big time match they could do. Even if he didn't have the retirement stipulation. Dad's asking one more. When do we see Rey Mysterio versus Dominic 2? I guess when they're on the same show next time. They're not on the same show at the minute, so it's looking like it could be a while. But I imagine they will revisit this at some point further down the line, whether it's another year or so.
I think again, and that's another retirement angle match that you're looking at. Dominic at some point will be a champion, whether it be like a United States or an IC champion. And it'll be champion. Like I said, I know I'm doing a Jonesy here and essentially wanting hair versus hair matches all the time. But Dominic versus Dom versus Ray is just, it's almost like it's written in the stars that these two, like the Ray's last match is against his son, and it's the match that he bows out to and elevates Dominic to a higher level.
Absolutely. So I'm thinking in my head now, I'm going a bit silly now, but obviously Dominic Mysterio, I mentioned Karrion Kross, JD McDonough. If we can get one more, that could literally be a barbershop quartet of people that need haircuts in WWE. Book that stable. Who's the 4th person? Who's the mystery one? Temple, help me out in the comments. C Nation, you're there as well. But thank you, C Nation, for dropping back in with us, and hope you're doing well. Hope your internet is back. I think mine's dropped out once or twice while we've been live here today as well, unfortunately. But Temple says,
you're right. You skated over it. It's fine.
We managed to make it work. Temple Play says the WWE Women's World TV Championship. Bring back the Mae Young Classic. Yes. Have females that aren't involved in any feuds or championships, and have a special title, and then it gets defended every week. Thoughts? I like it, especially with the idea of the Mae Young Classic. I think that the Cruiserweight Classic, those sort of things should be a yearly occurrence.
Yeah, my only problem is that if it's defended every week, you're either going to have one of two things. You're either going to have a title that's hot potatoed, or you're going to have someone who's just really dominant, winning every week that no one really is really going to get bored of really quickly.
Do you reckon I'm going to compare it now to the International Championship with Orange Cassidy? A lot of people have claimed that now that feels like a much more important title than the TNT title. Do you think that there's a potential that it could gain prestige of what someone like Orange Cassidy has done for the championship in AEW?
Yeah, it could do. It's just a case of like this is the problem is booking it. It's WWE trying to book a women's title like that they don't care about. Like for me, I think if any mid card title in a women's division in WWE is on the same lines as the tag team titles, and that's my biggest worry for it is that even though they tried doing something special to elevate it, they're not going to get like a Gunther style run with the IC title out of it. That's my biggest fear.
Fair enough. Then funny you mentioned Gunther because we've got here Gunther said that he wants the main event next year's WrestleMania as IC champion and win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. I saw an interview about it on YouTube. Fascinating. Let me know that interview tempo. I'd like to go and check that out.
And a repeat of Mania 6, yeah, where we get IC title versus WWE Championship.
Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan, of course, back then. Yeah, showing my age here, aren't I? Showing my age. Ghost Spider says, I wasn't a fan at the time, though. Ghost Spider 2003 says, I've got a bold prediction. Braun Breaker will win Money in the Bank ladder match next year. It's a very bold prediction, but I think it's a possibility. It certainly is. Ghost Spider goes on then to say the US title, LA Knight versus Logan Paul at WrestleMania 40. Would love to see that. We said beforehand, we'd love to see LA Knight versus Logan Paul. I think that could be a program that could get LA Knight to the next level against someone that got the social media following of a Logan Paul.
Let me ask you your feelings on the whole Ricochet Logan Paul match, because obviously because the spot in the Money in the Bank match didn't go as viral as they wanted it to, it's kind of apparently flattened the whole arc for these two are going to have a match at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean, I put it in the predictions video I did, or if you want the how I would book SummerSlam, because I genuinely didn't think they were going to do it. And I thought to myself, these two have had some moments where they have confidence in one another. They did have one big viral moment. I think that it'll be great if Ricochet can get a big time match at SummerSlam for him personally. Obviously, we know Logan Paul would definitely get a match on SummerSlam. So for me, I think why not? They have the potential to have a really groundbreaking match. And obviously, it will be not to everybody's taste and style with these two high flyers of doing these sort of attempting to do viral moments and spots. But certainly for me, I'm up for it. I'm looking forward to it. I think if you look for a WWE superstar in Ricochet, he's got a hell of a lot to gain and not so much to lose to have a match like that. It's something for me where I think it's definitely it's worth doing. So I'm happy to see it go down. Temple Play says Edge versus Randy Orton. Edge's retirement at WrestleMania with both men in the ring afterwards. A special moment. Thoughts? Obviously, we mentioned it's good to build up the young guys. It's good to give them the opportunity to have the I took Edge out. But obviously, at the same time, Baron Corbin took out Kurt Angle, and not everyone was happy about that. So, I mean, if they were to go into the legend status, obviously Brock Lesnar was mentioned earlier. Randy Orton, there is history there. So, I mean, there is something with those two in the storyline. They could make it work. I assume it would be a fun time. Obviously, they had the greatest wrestling match ever. Don't quote me on that. It's actually Backlash 2020. It's there.
We do remember that Randy Orton is the legend killer, right? The guy that wrote off so many people before. That's not actually not a bad shout as the type of match. It's just unfortunately that if anything, it should be a retirement match for both of them at this point. Because if you hear like depending on what's going on with Randy, I really don't want him to get to a point where he seriously ruins his physical health for the rest of his life with the stuff that he's been through, the operations and all this kind of stuff, and doing it even more. It's just I just hope the guy's safe, man. You know what I mean?
That's what it all comes down to. End of the day, safety comes first, and hopefully Randy's doing better because there are rumors he's meant to be coming back soon. Fingers crossed he will be. Richard says, "Who will Roxanne Perez reunite with? Not Cora Jade anytime soon. So I'm guessing no one at the moment. She's not in the team, I'm afraid. So we've got Ghost Spider here says Drew McIntyre should return as a heel. It's just my opinion. We agree with that, by the way. We were saying that before that we would believe that that would be the best thing for Drew McIntyre. I still think it will happen further down the line, but just not in the very near future as we started this Gunther feud. Sienna says, I would put Odyssey Jones in the new Retribution. He and Karrion Kross can be the muscle. Dominic Mysterio can be the guy who gets all the heat. JD McDonough can be the spokesperson of the group there. Bit of fantasy booking from CD. You'd love to see it. Ghost Spider says, new idea for Edge retirement match could be against AJ Styles at Crown Jewel or WrestleMania 40. AJ, another great performer. I'd love to see the match. That's certainly something I would like to see. But that's all the comments we've got through. Thank you for everyone that's been checking out the stream. Hope you all have enjoyed it. Make sure to hit the like button, share with a friend, and subscribe as well. But before we do vacate, and you can feel free to put some comments in on this as well, we're going to have one final topic we will be discussing just before we finish things off, and that is going to be about another tournament in AEW. In fact, we are going to be discussing, just get my graphics at the ready, who will win the men's and women's Owen Hart tournament. So we know now the finals after this week's collision. We've got CM Punk versus Ricky Starks taking place on the men's side. On the women's side, we still have two semi-final matches to take place this upcoming week on AEW. One on Dynamite, one on Rampage. The final will be on Collision. So we've got Sky Blue versus Ruby Soho taking place on Dynamite. We've got Willow Nightingale versus Athena taking place on Rampage. So without further ado, NXT, I'm going to start with you. We'll talk about the men's first because we have the final in place. CM Punk versus Ricky Starks. Obviously, CM Punk, does he need this? I don't know, but I know he's a big Bret Hart fan. I imagine he's a massive Owen Hart fan as well. He showed a real passion this past week on Collision, getting everyone to say, chant Owen during my match with Samoa Joe. You know, really sort of hitting home that this is Owen Hart's tournament, what Owen meant to the wrestling business, what he did for everyone that's probably been watching pro wrestling, how a number of people probably wouldn't be in pro wrestling if it wasn't for wrestlers like an Owen Hart, who was a game changer well ahead of his time. Ricky Starks, on the other hand, is someone that AEW has been trying to build for quite a while now. Obviously, had the championship match against MJF at Winter is Coming last year, had the program with Jericho, had also the program with Jay White, which for me wasn't as strong as what it could have been. But obviously now to win this would be massive for Ricky Starks and put him right back on track. How do you see this playing out?
It's damned if you do and damned if you don't with this one for me, because they've done such a really good job with getting CM Punk back in like the good books with fans. Like you said, that Owen Hart promo was like really sincere, really heartfelt. Like you can tell that the Canadian crowd appreciated it, and like again, it was just a great way of building him up. But then you've got, like you said again, the Ricky Starks is this up and comer, the guy that they're trying to build, and it's a double-edged sword because they're still trying to keep CM Punk as a top guy, and the guy obviously claims that he never lost the AEW World Championship, and it would be amazing if Ricky Starks wins this. Absolutely, like it would elevate him to the moon, and like I would love to see him do it. But I think at the minute the process is just all about rebuilding Punk, and I think that him winning it is just what they're going for, just to get him back in the graces with a lot of fans. Like I said, if he's cutting promos like that every week, it shouldn't take him too long, but I think winning this tournament will do him the world of good.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that argument. The thing is, I have two ideas in my head, and like you say, on paper, it just feels like you want to build up CM Punk. This is the sort of stuff that's going to get him back on the good graces with everybody, and obviously, it's the name value as well. You're adding a big name there. Imagine the first two Owen Hart Cup winners, obviously Adam Cole, and then CM Punk the next year. Obviously, two really big names there on the AEW side of things. But at the same time, Ricky starts to just feel like the breakout star, someone that could really do with this. Obviously, this is Owen Hart was someone that when he won the King of the Ring, if you want, wanted to be that person that could get to the next level, felt he was being overlooked by a Bret Hart at the time, obviously the big Bret Hart, Owen Hart storyline narrative that was going on at the time. And I just kind of think, wouldn't it be great to see the underdog do it, actually win the tournament? But for me, the only way I can see it realistically happening, I mean, obviously CM Punk has said like he is the guy until someone shows that he's not the guy anymore, which makes you think Punk, if he's going to lose, it's not going to be clean. The program's still going on with Samoa Joe. Is there a chance that Joe could cost Punk in this final?
It's a high possibility. I would just like to think that they book this because it's a tournament final. They'd like to possibly book it clean. It's probably their get out of jail card though with Samoa Joe. Like I said, I think it'd be great for Ricky Starks. It's just shooting yourself in the foot with who's going to win it. But it's a great shout out for the Samoa Joe scenario.
Absolutely, indeed. There, I'm hoping that, as I said, I'm hoping Ricky does it. But if it just stays 1-on-1, you can't bet against CM Punk, I don't think, at this particular moment. One last question I'll ask about the men's tournament just before we move on, because they are booking CM Punk as the babyface. Is there a way, in any way, shape, or form, that we could see some form of heel turn from Ricky Starks in this final? Because obviously he kind of was like in a part of this team with CMFTR, obviously, that were on a losing effort to Bullet Club Gold just recently on Collision. This past week, FTR made the save for CM Punk with Samoa Joe. and we saw Ricky Starks just come on the entranceway, didn't come all the way down to ring. Obviously, kind of gave that feeling that he was someone that was watching Punk's back, but clearly not enough now at this moment. Do you reckon there's a possibility something could be there that Ricky Starks could go back to the heel side at some point in the near future, or am I just thinking out of thin air?
It is a possibility, but I just think that Starks is too much of a fan favourite at the minute. I think this is why they've just booked themselves into a corner having Punk against Stark, unless the goal is to turn Punk heel. Do you know what I mean? I just think that as much as it's probably the safer bet, making Starks turn heel, I don't think it realistically would happen. I think there's more chance of Punk turning heel from it.
Yeah,
I think that's the only way you get around Punk losing and Ricky Starks winning.
I like that. I like that indeed. There. Well, let's give a final prediction then. Who's going to win it, CM Punk or Ricky Starks?
I'm going to go CM Punk just because he's booked himself in the corner by turning around saying I'm the man until somebody beats me. I think that promo alone has kind of sort of soured any result that involves CM Punk.
There we go, indeed. There, I think if it stays 1-on-1, it will be CM Punk that will win it. As I said, if there is any shenanigans, and I don't rule it out, Ricky Starks then would do it. But the thing is, I hope it remains face versus face. And this tournament for me feels like it should be a feel good tournament. We're celebrating the Owen Hart life career charity work that's done out there. So this for me, it feels like it's a babyface trophy, and it should be won by a good guy. So it's good to see two babyfaces in the final.
Yeah, I mean, I hopefully if they are going to do it with booking it right interference, I'd like it to be a case of that, like they book it in such a way that, for instance, Ricky Starks doesn't know there's been involvement, and he just, do you know what I mean? Like, for instance, I don't know, Joe just pops out of nowhere, socks him with a pair of knuckle dusters, but Starks is completely oblivious, hits his finisher, and just wins the match, thinking like he's won it of his own accord. Just because then I think it helps protect Starks instead of picking up a win via interference.
Yeah, I like that. I think that would be a good way to go about it. Let's move on to the women's then. In the meantime, obviously we have the semi-finals before the final at the time of recording, so it's not as clear cut here to make a prediction, but I certainly will make a good attempt to try and get it right. I'm sure NXT view will do the same. So on Dynamite this week, we've got a semi-final, Ruby Soho taking on Sky Blue. And then on Rampage, we have Athena taking on Willow Nightingale. Now, obviously, the key moments of these two matches, Ruby Soho last year lost in the final. Of course, she lost to Britt Baker in that final effort, but she beat Britt Baker in the first round this year, which makes, obviously, a good case that maybe she could go towards the final. Sky Blue, incredible talent. She's improving each and every week with her appearances and performances in ring. When you look on the other side, Athena and Willow Nightingale were supposed to have their match this past week on Collision, but of course Willow was not cleared for that match. Athena, of course, has made the point that she's never beaten Athena in the past, kind of like CM Punk could ever beat Samoa Joe. I wonder if that's an ingredient here of maybe what could be an indication of what could be that final. A part of me, if you'd have said to me before, how do I see the final playing out? I would have been tempted to have gone Sky Blue versus Athena, but I'm going to predict the final is going to be Ruby Soho against Willow Nightingale, purely because I think Ruby getting to the final again makes most sense for storyline narrative, and I think Willow beating Athena to finally get over that hurdle, then they can set up an ROH Women's Championship program after this tournament is finished.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, and I think I'm just giving my prediction away earlier. I think Ruby Soho honestly needs this win. Like, I know she's a heel, but she needs something because for the longest time, it's always been a case of so close yet so far. And as much as Willow winning over Ruby Soho would make a hell of a lot of sense and probably give her all the momentum in the world for that ROH World Championship title. Again, without being on AEW as much, I don't see the point in having Willow Nightingale win it. I think this is why I'm going to say Ruby Soho wins this.
I would like Willow to win it, but the thing with Willow winning it is what would be next? Would she go for the AEW Women's World Championship? Well, she did that at Forbidden Door and she lost. So I don't see them revisiting that again, because once you get involved with the social outcast, that's usually what would be the end game. So I'm inclined to kind of agree with you. I think the Ruby Soho, like you said, she always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I think this is the opportunity. She finally becomes that one, and she wins this tournament. And like you said, yes, it is a heel that wins it, but somewhere a heel needs to win this tournament. You can't always be a babyface every single time, otherwise it'd become very, very predictable. But I do really like the passion that CM Punk brought into this tournament this past week. Obviously, the final is going to be in Calgary as well, so it's a nice fitting finale as well for this tournament. So it'd be interesting how it'll go down. But I guess then both me and you will be going for Ruby Soho to pick up the W then in the final.
Yeah, like I said, I just think Ruby Soho needs it more than anyone.
Absolutely. Well, let's go then into the comments then, and then we'll wrap up our stream here today. Dethrone says Punk to win and then Ruby for the women's. So there we go. We've got Temple Plays here giving his pick as well. Wants Sky Blue to win the women's Owen Hart Cup tournament. Don't blame me for that one as well. I mean, she's been improving so much in the ring, so it would be good to see. C Nation says, I got CM Punk for the men's Owen Hart tournament. I've got Sky Blue for the women's tournament. Although
Sky Blue is that feel good moment if Sky Blue was to win it.
I would agree. She would definitely be the feel good moment. But C Nation says we've changed the mind there. Ruby Soho will be the winner there. Ruby Soho was in the first ever TBS Championship match and lost. She was in the first ever final for the Owen Hart final as well and lost. And Jordan's lost the AEW Women's World Championship match against Dr. Britt Baker. As we said there, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Temple Plays goes on to remind us as well that Willow has lost her New Japan Strong Women's title to the best female on the planet. Gilla? Tell me if I've got that pronounced that right or wrong. I'm not entirely sure. But
I'm not too sure myself.
No, so that's what the comments have got to say there with regards to the Owen Hart Cup tournament as well there. But let us know yours in the comments below as well. Who do you think is going to be winning the Owen Hart tournament for the men and the women? We look forward to interacting with you. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to SCW as always. And thank you for watching. Right, there we go. We're back on now with our actual video, so don't go anywhere. All stay here with us. But we're going to do the last comments then, which will take us in about 5-6 minutes. Then we'll be wrapping up here today. We've got Ghost Spider here saying that Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso at SummerSlam could be a match of the year candidate. It certainly could be, certainly with emotion as well. There's so much riding on this match with these two, and obviously to take like literally a third of SmackDown with their efforts this past week to build up for that SummerSlam match as well, and doing fantastic work all the way through. It has got that potential, surely. Obviously, if you're talking about match quality, obviously people probably start screaming with the others.
I got a feeling this will be a banger. I reckon that these two will knock it out the park. You got to think of every two people to have possibly the best chemistry. These guys are cousins. They've been wrestling for 25, 30 years against each other, man. These two should be able to put on an absolute smash.
Absolutely. I agree. I think he's got the candidate. I think if you're looking for the in-ring stuff, I think people will go with the Will Ospreays versus Kenny Omegas. But when you add the drama, I think that's the thing where I'm going to go over here. I mean, obviously, they had drama and they have history with their stuff as well. But when you look at 3 years of this going into one thing here, obviously, I know Ospreay and Omega have long history of New Japan, but it's not as... How can I put it over?
It's not consistently on TV. It's intermittent, their story.
Absolutely, and they've had like 6 months in between their match and stuff like that. James and Roman Reigns have had chemistry week in and week out when Roman Reigns is around, which he's around more than not. So this storyline's been going on, has been working its magic with how they're doing it. It seems to be the story makes the matches. I suppose it comes down to the idea if you like your pro wrestling or your sports entertainment, but Ghost Spider on the sports entertainment side, definitely agree with it. Definitely will be a candidate. I can take the Owen away from us now as well. We don't need to have that on the screen anymore. Love it when we get to do these little extra bits at the end of the videos, because technically you could see a blooper or two, and as you'll hear watching it, you will get to see it, which is quite fun. Several places, CM Punk and Bryan Danielson versus Samoa Joe and Kenta at AEW All In would be amazing, if I'm honest. Would be. I hope Bryan Danielson is back in time for All In. Obviously, the injury was expected 6 to 8 weeks, although his wife Brie Bella did suggest that it could be worse than first feared. Obviously, you're going to All In. You would hope to see that Bryan Danielson will be there.
Yeah, hopefully. But then the other thing that people tend to forget with is obviously muscle mass and strength and core training with a broken arm. So, do you know what I mean? The bone will heal in 8 to 10 weeks, but his arm will physically lose muscle mass and stuff, which he has to rebuild. So, It would be very close if he does manage to come back. But that sounds like an amazing match anyway. Joe and Kenta versus Danielson and Punk. But from what I hear, I think Kenta doesn't want anything to do with Punk.
That's what I've heard as well. So we'll have to wait and see if it would happen. If I was to predict right now, I'm predicting CM Punk versus Jay White for All In. That's my prediction for what a match.
That'd be awesome.
I will see if it happens or not, because they've been teasing it. They haven't done it. I wonder though, with All Out being the following week, if we get like the last layer of storyline to go into All Out in comparison to actually getting the big match. But we'll have to wait and see.
I'd hope not, because the fact that it's at Wembley, it's a massive stadium. Do you know what I mean? I'm really hoping that Wembley isn't used as a starter for your main course at All Out.
I hope so as well. Then we need All Out to be the dessert, and we can just be the main course. Not to be biased or anything like that, but getting hungry all of a sudden. Ghost Spider 2003 says, I think Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano will reunite and dethrone KO and Sammy. It's a great shout there. Then KO will turn heel and end the feud at WrestleMania 40 with Sammy. I think that certainly could be a quite a likely way they could go down with this, especially with KO's anger management.
I think Johnny needs, like, I don't know, again, another one that just seems to disappear every week. I think Johnny and Ciampa going back to a heel version of DIY would actually be really interesting to see, and these four would put on an absolute killer of a match.
They would indeed. I'm looking forward to when that match does eventually happen. Guys, Spider says, whereas Bobby Lashley, we all know Bobby Lashley was drafted to SmackDown. Fun fact, last time Bobby showed up on SmackDown, it was nearly 2 months ago. I did see, and I don't know how true it is. I didn't look at the source, and I kind of skimmed over it, that Bobby Lashley could be getting a character change. I really hope that's not the case, but he is due back any time now. Obviously, SummerSlam is a big show as well.
His character is immense. Well, why would you want to change it?
I saw it on Ringside News, and I don't buy them as a reliable source. It's very hit and miss with their stuff, unless they're going from a source somewhere else. So, I mean, I glazed over it and I saw it was Ringside News, so I kind of carried on. So I didn't look to see if there was another one there, but there we are. Sination says, Adam Cole and Dr. Britt Baker won the first AEW Owen Hart tournaments, and they were both heels at the time. So there you go. Heels can win this tournament. They are both babyfaces now. So there you go.
Adam Cole is the biggest tweener in the world, man. That guy can never be heel. He's too loved, man. No matter what evil shenanigans that guy gets up to, he is loved too much. Same for Britt, to be fair. Britt's a massive tweener now anyway. After her initial heel run, they're biggest tweeners in wrestling, those two.
Absolutely. They can still slice your birthday cake and still you'd like them. You still cheer them on. They've kind of got that ability, haven't they? So, I would be a bit
really
upset.
Lovable people.
I'd be a little bit upset, though. I really enjoy cake, but still, you can tell the hunger.
You know what it is? There's that one bit that's got like the cherry on it or something. They take that slice. Do you know what I mean? There's still cake left, but they take the one slice you wanted, the one that had the cherry on top.
The one that's got like the marzipan extra bit that's got your name written on it. Do you know what I mean? Like those, for us as well. Yeah, exactly.
Scumbags.
Like obviously with us being Steve as well, like it's like they take the S, so it's just like T, or take the S and the T, so you've just got Eve left. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't Adam and Eve it, honestly. But Temple Play says the Bloodline storyline needs some guerrilla tactics war games. If they're going to do it, Roman and God versus Solo and the Usos is a nice little bit. Would love it indeed. Sinister says, "Oh, I get it. You're going to make a video of who will win." Exactly. Thank you, thanks, Sinister. I try. It worked before when we got like 4 videos.
It saves
out
doing
of the
2 videos in one.
It does. Yeah, it does. And the thing is, you've been here, so technically you don't need to see the other video. But of course, if you want to show some love to it, we do highly appreciate it as well. But Temple Play says Ospreay versus Danielson needs to happen one day. My God, it certainly does. I do think we're going to get Ospreay, Omega, the trilogy at All In, though. So we speak about big matches at All In. I think that certainly could be your main event of that show. CNation says KO and Sammy versus DIY is a dream match. 2 of the best tag teams, and it's NXT Black and Gold versus NXT Black and Gold, and it's glorious by the sounds of it.
And I'm still to this day gonna bang on about Worlds Collide, DIY versus I'm gonna make myself look like a complete tit now because I cannot remember who their opponents were. Mustache Mountain. Yeah, I was just literally thinking of the name. But that tag team match is one of the most underrated tag team matches ever. It's amazing.
It is amazing indeed. Obviously, we're going to start doing odd streams of matches here and there, like matches we think people should have seen. We did a poll earlier this week. I've had a look, and it's kind of unanimous at this point. I'm going to do a separate post for it, but for those that are here now, you get to see the result for us. The winner of it is Bret the Hitman Hart versus Owen Hart, the steel cage match from SummerSlam 1994. So what we'll be doing, we will be doing that match as a watch along. So you can join us, watch at the same time as us. We can talk pro wrestling. We'll talk about that match, obviously. We'll be talking about the storyline at the time and stuff. And for those that have never seen that match, it could be a fun place to come and see it. Because we will talk about other bits as well. It'll be just a general watch along and should be a lot of fun. So look to do that during the month. So thanks to everyone that voted for it. A heck of a match as well. It's voted as one of the best steel cage matches of all time in a lot of places as well. So I'm very, very pleased that people have selected that one there.
And it's ranked. It's rated as one of the best SummerSlam matches of all time as well.
There you go. So it's a great one. And obviously with the greatest SummerSlam match coming out as well as a video on this channel in the very near future as well. Certainly could be seeing 1 or 2 votes going in for that as well. Temple Plane says Kota Ibushi to go absolutely mental on Yuta in Blood and Guts would be great to see. So would be great to see. Wouldn't be against that at all. Temple Plane says Adam Cole was on Twitch last night streaming some good some gameplay, and MJF rang him on the stream, and they were talking about the double clothesline. This storyline is gold. Yeah, when they actually hit that double clothesline and they actually win a match of it, the place is going to go mental. I just love as well, like, because we didn't talk about in the greatest detail, but obviously the fact about MJF during the match. The most old school trick in the book, so you can see from the 80s, the abdominal stretch to get the hand movement of getting a handshake during it to get the extra leverage. Moments like that are gold because Adam Cole, you know, you could see with Adam Cole, even with the birthday stuff after the match as well, he's a guy that's just transitioned into a babyface, but he kind of likes the heel stuff as well. He's dipping his toes back into his old ways, and it's kind of like, I do like this a little bit. And the storyline is
very ROH Adam Cole. Very ROH Adam Cole.
It's fascinating. And I kind of want to see them drag this out for a little while. I don't want this to just be just a couple of weeks, but fingers crossed if they do a blind eliminator tournament final, I don't know, Fighter Fest, Fight for the Fallen, Quake for the Lake, Dragon Special, whatever they do between now and All Inks. They did 4 of them last year. They did 4 of them last year in a way. It's awful, isn't it? Keep it going. Keep it going for a while. Literally keep it going for a while because it's so much fun.
Rage in a cage, Quake in the lake.
We will literally. But yeah, it was absolutely genius. Love it. And Temple Place, thank you for sharing that because it's certainly awesome. Last comment from Ghost Spider. We will literally do the last 4 comments then. We'll be wrapping it up. Last comment. I don't know why a lot of people were hating on Damian Priest winning Money in the Bank. I think it's because LA Knight didn't.
It was the right move to make to get major heel heat on a heel character. It was absolutely spot on. That's why I predicted Priest was going to win it. Yeah,
absolutely. It did make the most sense in the end there. And NWO said the same there from C Nation, saying that that's the case. Why there? Yeah, we've got told because one of the options was Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. Could have been a YouTube short. Believe it or not, that match is 14 minutes long. It's 14 minutes apparently. That was entrances included. We'll include the entrances when we do it as well.
But, yeah, that's probably about 8 minutes of it in total anyway.
Probably. But all I'm saying is keep an eye out for Sheamus versus Daniel Bryan WrestleMania 28. That is a YouTube short in the making 18 seconds long. I definitely think that should be done at some point. That's Reynolds. Can you do a SummerSlam or Mania with Hogan? Well, in the voting of what we've had, unfortunately at this particular moment, no. But next month, what I'll do is I'll put a Hogan option in either a match or show, whatever is put up for the public vote. Hogan will have capacity in one of them, and it will involve a SummerSlam or WrestleMania just for you, Daz. So that's what I'll do. It'll be one of 5 options there. So make sure you vote for it, and if everyone else votes for it, you'll get your wish. And C Nation, I knew he was going to say this when I mentioned it. AEW is too many specials close to one another. It was painful for me to make my predictions. It felt like I was doing one every week. And to be fair, C Nation, I think he was, and I think I was as well at that time. It was a glorious time actually for the channel at that point because it gave me an excuse to do live streams every week. But that's all the comments we've had for today. I want to thank everyone for watching the video. This is actually the real finish of the video this time, not just a video in the middle of the video. But I want to say thank you to everyone that's been watching. Amazing comments and questions as always. Without you all, this show, as we say, is nothing. So we do appreciate everyone that does get involved. Some new viewers as well during this. So I hope everyone's enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed the video, make sure to like it, share with a friend as well, and subscribe to the channel as well if you're new here as well. And also, if you are watching as well, you can always drop a comment after the video. Why not drop in? We can interact and talk pro wrestling a little bit more. If you're watching on delay, thank you very much. You've taken 2 hours out of your life to spend time with us, and we do really appreciate it. NXT Steve, I want to thank you as always for being on this show. You are the regular. You are now literally, rather than being like a special guest or whatever, the regular. That is what it is, the one and only.
Steve, NXT Steve, the regular. I like it.
Yeah, can we get it printed on a t-shirt?
Maybe it depends. It depends on the. If it's an all over print, I'm sold on it, man. I love my all over print t-shirts.
See what we can do. Temple Play says Cole versus MJF at Black Cole pay-per-view event. Lol. To be fair, I wouldn't put past AEW to come up with crazy names. To be fair, but yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. NXT. What would anything you'd like to add before we close off?
Steve, let me talk to you. We've been doing this for 2 hours, and these people that are stuck with us, they get to see this great piece of action right now. If you out there in the wrestling YouTube world, you want to subscribe to the SCW channel, you subscribe to SCW. You heard it here. Yeah.
Honestly, this is the man right here.
They're getting more crazier as they go along, man.
And I hope they continue to, because that is beautiful. We can't top that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for watching. Look after yourselves and each other, and we'll see you for the next stream. Obviously, next week coming up, we've got Impact Wrestling Slammiversary predictions. Hopefully, look to see if as well if we can do another live stream as well during the week. But look after yourselves and each other, and yeah, happy wrestling, everybody.